This group of adventurers comes up with the perfect plan to clear the hardest dungeon. They bought a bunch of slaves to use as bait and escape without having to fight. In theory, the plan was perfect, until it was time to actually do it. The second they stepped inside the dungeon, one adventurer got swallowed whole, another got crushed by the monster, and then the leader got devoured too, without even having time to react. Truly, what a perfect plan. The last adventurer on the ground and about to die sees one of the slaves just chilling, staring right at him. Since the slave didn't help, his last words were wishing him a horrible death. After everyone got wiped out, the slave climbs down from the tree to face the monster head on. The creature lunges super fast, but not fast enough for him. The kid took down the monster with ease with a single strike. This is Elpam, and the truth is he's no ordinary slave. In his past life he was a dragon hunter. On a near impossible mission, all his partners were killed and only he was left, covered in blood, facing the three-headed Dragon King. Hopeless, angry, and full of rage all at once, he fires off one last spell with everything he has left. But he was too slow, and the dragon struck first. When he took the hit, he couldn't understand why it had to end like this, and all he wanted was another chance. That's when he woke up chained inside a cell. Looking around, he figures out where he is and also recognizes his owner. That's when he realizes he went back in time, right at the start of his story. On the day the adventurers showed up and bought him to use as bait, he knew this was his second chance. Back to the moment he killed the monster, he starts looting all the group's items. But then he gets caught off guard by more monsters that were hiding. Before he won with just a spear, but now with the mage's staff and a telekinesis ring, he wipes them all out with ease. Looking like a high-rank adventurer, he starts chaining spells together, shooting fire arrows and guiding them with the ring, hitting multiple targets at once and clearing the entire dungeon. One mage from the group survived and saw everything. Elpam said he hates people who use others as bait. The mage begged for her life, but forgiveness is God's job, not our MC's. So he was the only one who made it out alive. When he returns to the city alone, everyone gets confused seeing a slave coming out alive. Looking for his freedom, the protagonist meets the guildmaster to try and become an adventurer. Rank E right off the bat. The old man thought that was ridiculous and said what defines an adventurer isn't killing monsters, it's staying alive. So the guildmaster threw the kid into a portal where 12 groups had already gone in and never came back. If Elpam could make it back alive, the old man would give him whatever he wanted. The problem is the old man also sent a group of adventurers in with him, with the mission to kill Elpam inside and steal his items. As soon as they entered the dungeon, the first thing they did was set up a base, because they knew they'd need patience. Once the base is ready, they split into two teams to scout the area. Tom, Max, and Rue make up the first group, just 3 people. He'll stay on signal duty and run back to base if needed. After that, the pair head off alone through the forest. Shep finds it strange that they still haven't seen any monsters and thinks they may have camped in the wrong spot, so next time they'll need to go farther. Then he asks if the boy is enjoying his first adventure. The boy admits he's nervous, and the other man laughs, saying that's normal. He says he's been an adventurer for years, and still gets scared every time he enters a portal. Deep down, he still feels like a frightened kitten. What gives him courage is the people beside him, and he says his teammates are good men. He adds that hearing the boy's story made him feel awful. He can't imagine how rough that life was, then makes an offer. He asks the young man to join his party, but he cuts himself off when he notices the boy has stopped and is staring at something. Xiaobei quickly says he wasn't being serious, so the boy shouldn't worry. Later, the group sits around the fire talking about the money, though one of them admits it may not be as easy as they thought. The leader tells them to eat first. They can talk more tomorrow. The boy quietly takes a drink of water. Not long after, night settles in. Then creaking noises come from the camp. Someone carrying a torch calls out to the young man. In a cold voice, he asks if the boy is really asleep. The boy stays silent and keeps pretending to sleep. Max asks the captain what he's doing. Sure, the boy is out cold. He pulls a dagger with a crazed look on his face. They remember mixing sleeping herbs into his food. He ate all of it, so there's no way he should wake up. If they're lucky, he might already be dead. So Max, the dark-skinned man, gets ready to finish the job. He drives the dagger into the bedroll, where the boy was supposed to be lying. But then he notices something is wrong. It was a trap. The boy isn't there. The others are stunned and can't understand how. Shep shouts for everyone to find him, saying he couldn't have gone far. Suddenly, a blast of fire tears through the bottom of the shelter. As the flames spread, panic breaks out. While the boy watches from a distance, they scramble, yelling that they need to grab the food and the items, and one of them realizes this may have been Elpam's trap all along. Then a teammate calls out to him, making his face turn even darker with anger. That's when they all spot the giant eye of a massive monster. Horrified, the leader realizes this had been planned from the start. They were dancing in that boy's hands. He used them as bait to lure the monster in. In a panic, they all leap down from the tree platform. Right after that, the huge creature swallows part of the shelter. Watching it, the boy thinks the whole thing was stupid. If they wanted to trick him, they shouldn't have acted so nice. In a portal where 12 parties had already failed, there was no way they'd bring in bait unless this was a setup. He pushes those thoughts aside and focuses on the creature. He already suspected it was the boss, because he'd seen something like it before. The giant monster tears through the trees like they're nothing. Xiaobei realizes this kind of monster is a terrible match for them. One of them asks what that thing even is, and the leader says it might be a golden slime. That's not a monster you normally see. Bosses like that are extremely rare and usually only appear in red portals. Its whole body is acidic, making it the worst enemy for close-range fighters. And there's something even worse about it. The leader suddenly notices it. He shoves his teammate aside and yells for him to dodge as a huge stream of acid comes flying in. The man with the scar on his face stares in shock and asks what that was. He realizes it was a long-range move called Acid Arrow. A man stares in horror, thinking this thing is completely unfair. The leader tells everyone to calm down. When they ask what now, he says to get out first. The skill should still be on cooldown. After that, they can recover and wait for a chance to hit the core in its head. Max starts laughing when he hears the skill is on cooldown. Then he charges back at the monster. The others yell at him, but he says there's still time. As he runs in, he tells them to leave it to him. Xiaobei tries to stop him, warning that they need to attack together and telling him to wait. But before anything else, Acid Arrow slices the man in half. Xiaobei can only stare, shocked and crushed. The cooldown should have lasted 10 more seconds. Even so, the monster fires Acid Arrow again. In moments, their bodies are stripped down to bone. Watching from a distance, Elpam thinks it's finally over. He admits the leader wasn't wrong. Golden slimes grow stronger the more they consume, and that also shortens the cooldown on their skills. Its huge size means it already ate plenty before this, probably the earlier parties, so it has gone beyond its normal class. Now it's 2 levels above the portal itself, far beyond what any First Circle adventurer could handle. So in the end, one thing is clear, there are no items left in this dungeon, and his mission failed. But before leaving, he remembers the man's challenge, prove your worth. That thought makes him smile a little. The slime moves around carelessly, until it senses something coming. A fire shot slams into the middle of its head. Acid drips down and eats into the ground. The creature growls as it heals, and Elpam realizes he hit the core dead on. Judging the damage, he figures 5 shots should be enough to fully expose it. Still, that doesn't matter right now. All he cares about is proving he can handle this. The slime answers with another acid arrow aimed at Elpam. He dodges by jumping from the tree, just before it gets hit. The monster fires again, sending out a burst of shots. But MC gets his rope out in time, and with clear strain on his face, he uses the ring on his finger to move it with telekinesis, knowing every shot has to hit the same exact spot. Still in motion, he uses his staff as a base to form a bow and fire another arrow. It lands right where he struck before. The wounded slime attacks again, and Elpam counts 4 more shots. Using the rope, he swings clear of the attack. Then he plants his feet on a trunk to push off with more force, slipping past another acid burst that smashes into the tree. Hanging in the air by the rope, he fires again, hitting the same point and cutting it down to 3 more. Even while its head regenerates, the monster keeps shooting, but Elpam avoids the barrage and readies his fire staff. Another arrow hits. 2 more, he thinks. While guiding both his rope and dagger, still airborne, he fires again. This time the creature dodges, surprisingly fast for something so huge, but Elpam knows that won't save it. Using his telekinesis ring, he bends the fire arrow mid-air and sends it back toward the slime's face. It strikes the center of the core. A crack spreads, exposing it right in the middle. 1 more hit should finish it. Gripping his staff, he says this next one will be the last. At that moment, the creature's giant hand swings in to crush him. When it's only a few meters away, Elpam catches it just in time. He instantly activates the telekinesis ring, driving his rope and dagger into the ground. That gives him enough pull to dodge the strike. He slides away across the ground, then readies a magic arrow with his flame staff. The fire arrow launches. Seeing it coming, the creature tries to block with its huge hand, but Elpam breaks into a wide grin and uses telekinesis to redirect the shot straight to the weak point. The blast lands exactly where it needs to. The flame core is hit and starts shaking through the monster's body. Its jelly-like mass begins to swell. The monster looks confused as its eye starts to bulge. Then it explodes, and Elpam runs. The acidic liquid from its death spills out and rushes toward him as he readies his rope. Focused, he pours telekinesis into the dagger and rope. As the acid wave closes in, he fires them out, catching a tree branch. The pull lifts him onto it while acid floods the area below. He watches in silence, face serious, and eyes unreadable. The acid spreads through the area, melting the weaker trees. Once it starts to dry up, a safe path opens. Elpam climbs down to the ground. He walks through the area quietly, studying the ground until something catches his eye. Using his levitation ring, he draws the red glow closer. A red core rises from the ground to his hand. He grabs it and blue fire wraps around it. The orb starts shining the moment it touches him. Then it releases a huge amount of red mana. A mana barrier forms around him. Soon after, he's back at the Merchant Union. The room is dead quiet while the eye patch man smokes his cigar. He admits the boy wasn't just putting on a show. Elpam returns without the requested items, but explains that the hunters placed in his group planned to steal from him. So he left to avoid that, and then the boss found them and killed everyone. The man eyes him suspiciously and asks if it really was the monster. He says it was a golden slime, and the man immediately understands that all the portal's items must have melted. He knows that's a huge loss, especially since those items were rented out. But the real issue is that Elpam came back alive. There are rules for portals. First, both entries and party size are limited until everyone inside is wiped out. Second, each portal color has a level cap from red to purple, and adventurers above that level can't enter. Third, a portal can only be used once. If someone enters, survives, and comes back out, that portal is destroyed. The man figures the portal is a total loss. A first circle mage beating a golden slime would be nearly impossible, so he says he understands. Even so, Elpam still failed the mission. The protagonist tells him he's being too impatient. He hasn't finished. Then he pulls something from his sleeve and says the golden slime left him this. The bearded man is stunned when he sees it. MC somehow got a second circle by taking in what came from the golden slime. Shocked and excited, the man says this changes everything. Elpam absorbed the golden slime's mana stone. He says that should prove his worth, and now he wants E rank, but pauses when the man says he'll be made D rank instead. Thrilled, the old man says he'll give him D rank, and if he works with him, he'll even get treatment equal to a C rank. The protagonist simply signs the paper. Normally, giving C rank treatment to someone who hasn't even reached the third circle would be favoritism. Adventurer ranks depend a lot on circles, since circles show power, and the gap between them is obvious. Still, the man can't ignore that this boy is abnormal. People don't just rise a circle by absorbing a mana stone. He remembers what Elpam said about survival instinct. Smiling, the old man says the boy has crushing talent. He became a first circle mage, and came back as a second circle one. He's never seen anyone grow this fast, and now he wants MC on his side. He notes that his treatment improved even faster than he expected. But there isn't much time left before the first portal raid, the one that lets 100 red rank members enter. It'll be the first major event the guilds pay attention to, and the merchant union will likely care too. For now, that works fine for him. He's in a hurry anyway, so it's better to move his plan forward. In secret, he calls the old man Abyss and says he needs a favor. The man asks what it is. Elpam lightly holds out his hand and asks to borrow some money. The old man keeps smiling in silence, while thinking this kid has some nerve. Some people say the portals appeared in the Age of Adventurers, but in truth, they were a trap set by the Dark Mage. Countless adventurers died inside them, wiping out this world's potential. Then the final day came, and the monsters that had been waiting poured out of the portals. That was when humanity lost, and now that future is only 3 years away. Abyss stands by the window, cigar in hand, watching Elpam leave. The protagonist thinks the money isn't enough, but it's a solid start. The portal of 100 they found this time is a red one, and only people with 2 circles can enter. The merchant union usually chooses adventurers with more circles, but they're investing in him because they're aiming for that portal. He got some money, but blowing it all on gear would be stupid. Items for his level cost way too much. Still, there is one smart way to use it, so he heads to a place marked by a glowing gold sign. He can read the writing, even if we can't. For a moment he just stands there in silence. A worker approaches and reveals this is a slave market, offering to show him around. He asks what kind of companion the adventurer wants, someone to use as bait, or a fighter to battle beside him. The boy says he's here for a specific person, and asks to be taken there. A confused look crosses his face. Then the man in the bandana brings him to the punishment area, where troublesome slaves are kept. Elpam suddenly stops when he notices something. Tense now, he says that's the one. A person is chained up, arms locked in restraints. The sight makes him swallow hard. The seller asks if he really wants this one, and Elpam says he knows the condition they're in. He keeps staring at the chained figure. Then MC confirms this is exactly who he came for. In his past life, one person's death sped up the world's destruction. That victim was the heroine of the Axaran, and the one who killed her was her only apprentice. That man was Debo, the hero slayer, and that murder started the world's collapse. Debo asks why Elpam came to him. He says they don't know each other and tells him to get lost. The merchant quickly apologizes, saying Debo's mental state is bad. Then he points out how strange this is. Even as a slave, Debo still looks down on adventurers and talks to them like trash. The merchant adds that there are plenty of other wild ones like him. Elpam thinks Debo's talent is just as amazing. Back then, the two were among the few people who drew attention, and people compared them because they came from the same region and awakened at the same time. And they shared one even bigger trait. He asks the price, and the man says Debo came from a rich family, so can the boy really afford him? With a grin, he names the cost, 1 million. Then he asks if the protagonist is ready to pay it. Elpam knows he needs money badly, just like this slave does. Debo has a younger sister suffering from black blood. The merchant tells him to leave if he can't pay, but MC digs into his bag, and something suddenly lights up in Debo's eyes. He realizes the boy actually has the full amount. Debo can't believe it and wonders if the cash is even real, while the seller is just as shocked. The merchant goes stiff and swallows hard, but Elpham lays out contract terms instead. 1 year together, profit split 7-3, and he gets first pick of items left in the portal. That leaves the merchant confused, because this isn't a slave contract, it's a team contract. He hands it over and tells Debo to read it carefully. Instead, Debo snatches the paper right away, saying there'll be no backing out. Then he bites his finger until it bleeds. Elpham notices he accepted without hesitation, and wonders if it's because his sister's life depends on it. A faint smile appears on his face. With the contract done, the protagonist says they're heading straight to the portal, and Debo agrees. Still, he says he'll have to prove himself. Full of resolve, Debo promises to work harder than anyone. Before long, they reach the forest. There, Debo starts calling him boss. He thanks Elpham for buying him a new weapon, but says he usually uses a longsword, so maybe they should go trade it. MC tells him he's using an axe, and if he hates it that much, he can end the contract. Soon they reach the portal, a red one, limited to 8 people, with the mark set at the entrance. Debo asks where the rest of the party is, figuring a rich boss should have a strong team. He even asks if there's at least a healer, then notices Elpham is just staring at him. Now getting nervous, Debo starts guessing. He begins to answer, then raises one finger. He says the full team is already here. A heavy silence follows as Debo tries to process that. Then panic kicks in, and he blurts out that this can't mean what he thinks it does. Elpham kicks him from behind and tells him to stop wasting time and move. As Debo goes through the portal, he screams in despair, and just like that, the two of them enter a red portal. Inside, Debo hits the ground hard and yells. He demands to know if Elpham is insane. Clearing a portal meant for 8 people with only 2 is madness, so this has to be a joke. He says he at least needs a weapon, but the protagonist's dead serious look shuts him up, and he awkwardly says he'll try to adjust. Then something else rattles him, a giant dust cloud. A pack of trunk-shaped monsters is charging at them. Debo realizes his shouting may have drawn hard trunks, monsters so tough that swords and spears barely pierce them. MC cuts him off and tells him to move. Debo jumps aside. A single fire arrow drops one monster instantly. Debo stares in total confusion. Then that same arrow tears through more hard trunks. Several monsters burst apart. The arrow moves so fast it punches through them like a bullet. A moment later, the last one crashes down. Elpham coldly calls it disappointing. Pathetic, really, for Debo to act like that. The moment they entered, he warns him not to screw up like that again, and Debo starts wondering who this kid really is. Elsewhere that night, someone reports that the merchants took the bait. They explain the plan is moving forward, and the people being sent have already been secured. A figure in a long black glove slowly swirls a glass of wine. A girl asks for permission to proceed. The man hidden in darkness gives it. She bows deeply, then vanishes into shadows. The old man with long hair says everything is happening by one person's will. Raising his glass, he toasts the freedom of this world. Back in the portal, the plant monsters still burn on the ground. Debo reports that he's collected 27 mana stones. Elpham nods and tells him to keep going, which the big man gladly does. The heat in that place is brutal. Debo had thought he was nuts, but now he sees how strong he is and wonders if that magic is telekinesis, because he's never seen a mage fight like that. He even starts smiling, thinking this might save him medical bills, until the protagonist cuts in. Another group of monsters has appeared. Debo counts 9 of them, and Elpham says that's perfect. That comment leaves Debo confused. Seeing MC's serious face only makes it weirder. Then a small stone flies out and gets one monster's attention. From above, Debo suddenly dives in like a demon. His blow splits the creature clean in half. The rest instantly go on alert. Debo knows fighting them all at once is bad enough, and using an unfamiliar weapon makes it worse. Sure, he'd still fail even after 10 tries. He charges in anyway while cursing his crazy boss. Watching from a distance, Elpham can tell Debo has only used swords his whole life, but soon he'll learn the axe is the weapon that can make him far stronger. His talent is obvious. After all, he was the only apprentice of the axe heroine. One monster lunges at him like a pair of pincers. Debo swings back and immediately notices something odd. The axe reaches farther than a sword, and it feels much lighter too. He starts wondering what happens if he uses it differently. So he does, and the weapon moves even faster. His next strike is smooth and clean, killing the monster in one hit. His speed and control keep rising. Elpham sees that Debo already gets it. Even without awakening a circle, he's incredibly strong. Then Debo suddenly feels the ground shake and stops attacking. He wonders if it's an earthquake. Instead, rocks begin breaking loose. From behind them emerges the paw of a massive monster. Debo freezes in shock. The thing slams the ground near him and sends him flying. Elpham stays clear and tries to identify it. He recognizes the monster as a stumpy. It attacks Debo again, but he gets him out just in time. Then he sets him down off to the side. He says the creature's huge size doesn't make it more dangerous. If anything, being that big just makes it easier to hit. Lying there, Debo looks surprised, then smiles, saying maybe Elpham's magic can handle it. But that hope fades when he sees the monster block the protagonist's attack. Its reactions are faster than expected, so MC uses telekinesis to curve a fire arrow around the tree, thinking he only needs one clean hit. Even then, the tree dodges. Elpam is visibly shocked that it stopped even that. Debo sees the magic failed too, and asks why he is just standing there instead of running before he gets killed. The protagonist realizes his attacks can hurt it, but the real issue is that the monster never leaves an opening. Its branches are the biggest problem. A second stomp shakes the area and throws both of them into the air. Then another branch lashes out, this time straight at the muscular man. Elpam is ready, so he uses his telekinesis ring and yanks a huge boulder from the ground. He turns it into a foothold for both of them. The big guy sees his boss arrive and praises him, thanking him too. He admits he thought he was dead, and Elpam shrugs it off. MC tells him to handle the smaller monsters while he takes the big one. Debo tries to stop him, but he already charges ahead. As he moves, he fires another fire arrow. Watching this, Debo thinks they can't beat a monster like this without a plan. They should run. The blast goes off beside the creature, and for a moment the warrior thinks he was right. Then the monster suddenly looks shocked, because a fire shot slams into its cheek. Debo is stunned that Elpam actually landed a hit. The protagonist stays calm and locked in. The branches are faster than he expected, but he still sends out another arrow. At that speed he can't control it with telekinesis and attack at the same time. Still, as a second circle mage, Elpam can cast the same spell twice in a row. That second shot slices off one of the monster's branches. The warrior glances over with a grin, impressed. Hiding one fire arrow behind the first is crazy precise. The monster can't stop two attacks back to back. All he can do now is admire MC, because that move is unreal. But then something else grabs his attention. A few small monsters slip past him and rush toward Elpam. Realizing it too late, he shouts for him to look behind him. The protagonist instantly turns from the giant monster and strikes the smaller ones closing in from the rear. Annoyed, he mutters that he can't even ignore the weak ones. That tiny opening is all the creature needs. It lunges at the boy with its claws. Elpam knows one mistake means death, so he barely dodges with sharp, quick movement. But another huge branch swings in, stopping inches from his face. Right then, a strong hand grabs his shoulder. It's Debo. He shoves MC back and chops through the massive branch with his axe. Elpam lands safely on the ground, and the warrior says he just saved his life, so he should take back what he said earlier. A relieved smile finally appears on his face. He tells Debo he's finally being useful. After that, the two agree to finish this boss for good. The protagonist launches two fire arrows again, and another branch gets cut away. The creature lets out a sharp cry of pain, but another arrow is already racing toward a different branch. Debo tightens both hands on his axe and chops through a giant branch, just as the fire arrow curves away. The spell smashes into two more branches, making the monster scream again. Then Elpam notices something alarming. The monster is attacking Debo from both sides. He warns that he'll take the right. Debo grins and yells that he's got the left, and together they strike, cutting off even more branches from the giant beast. Debo drops to the ground and slides out of danger, then rushes right back in, circling the trunk. He unleashes a storm of blows, slicing through branch after branch, until a heavy hit smashes into his back. Blood sprays from his nose and mouth as he's sent flying. The creature moves in to crush him and swallow him whole, but from a distance, a boulder flies toward him under Elpam's telekinesis. That saves him just before the monster can devour him. Still, the creature is smart enough to smash the moving rock apart. Seeing things get worse, MC uses his telekinesis ring again. This time he goes much bigger, sending dozens of rocks into the air at once. Debo lands on one carefully, only to spot another deadly strike coming from behind. He shouts that there's no escape, but keeps leaping from stone to stone. Meanwhile, Elpam's fire arrows burn through several branches. That finally pulls the creature's attention toward him. Like a demon, Debo charges in while he tells him to finish it. He slams a hit into the creature's eye and makes it bleed. The giant tries to pull back, but Debo clings to it while it screams, then suddenly loses his axe. It lands on a rock nearby, and he braces himself. Charging again, he says it's not over yet. Elpam gathers all his telekinesis into one hand and locks the spell onto Debo's weapon. He pulls his hand back and the axe follows, flying toward the monster's other eye. It lands right in Debo's hand, and he tells the monster to get ready. It's the one getting eaten now. Then Debo drives another strike into the beast's eye. The monster collapses with a scream and a brutal roar. Debo is thrown away, but he twists in the air and lands safely. Even then, the dying monster tries one last time to swallow him, but two arrows shoot in from behind Debo and race at the beast. Both of them fly straight into its mouth and burn up the monster's core. A final scream rips out as the creature goes up in flames. Debo drops to his knees, breathing hard, and Elpam walks over to say he did well. The protagonist stands there with one hand on his hip, looking over the scene. Still catching his breath, Debo tells him he did well too. Together they watch the huge monster crash to the ground. Later that night, in a quiet part of the city, someone says they should eat soon and get some sleep. They join their hands and give thanks for the meal. Then a knock at the door makes the young girl look up. Curious, she goes to open it and asks who's there. The moment she sees the visitor, she freezes. It's her older brother, finally home. She clutches her dress as he says he's back. She tries to stay calm, but tears start rolling down her face. Even so, she rushes in and hugs him tight, welcoming him home. After that, we move to a cabin in the forest. Elpam looks at someone lying in bed. His expression is empty as ever, yet this time there's more behind it. This was the home where he grew up with his father. Now the figure in that bed is only the body of what used to be his family. He pulls a cloth over the corpse and gathers mana through his staff, readying more fire. Soon after, he walks out of the house, weighed down by grief. He keeps those feelings buried and listens only to the crackling wood as the house burns. Elsewhere, the bearded man sits in his office, thinking this is going to be a problem. A portal meant for 100 people is about to open, and he's unsure how to organize it, though his superior will step in if he fails. This time, all 10 major merchant unions are targeting that portal, and among the many epic items there might even be a legendary one. He knows none of this will be simple. The 3 Natish sisters from another union are involved, and they're far beyond normal second circle mages. Looking at all 10 unions, every one of them will send top teams, and his own union will be outclassed fast. He stares at a poster of Elpam and admits he's unsure. Then the door opens, and the bearded man demands to know who came in without knocking. A second later, he's startled by who it is. He recognizes the man at once from the way he carries himself. It's Mr. Rakan. He asks if the list of groups for the portal is ready. The old man apologizes and says it isn't. Rakan says that's unusual for him, then asks what he thinks about that boy. He replies that Elpam's real talent is impossible to judge. Last time a whole group died, and that's why he's still doubtful. Rakan suggests testing him again and says this is the perfect time. He should gather every group under consideration to make it easier. With a cruel smile, Rakan adds that this time there will be plenty of witnesses. Not long after, someone arrives at the testing site. It's Elpam with his partner, who points out that there are a lot of people here today. Someone walks up and identifies them as members of the 5th group. The crowd eyes them with suspicion because the two already have a bad history. MC narrows his eyes and scans the area. He can tell nobody here is friendly. In their minds, slaves are just dead weight, and to him that's normal for veteran groups. Everyone present seems to be first or second circle, real pros who don't need bait. Then the operation leader calls everyone together. Elpam recognizes him, and the man gets straight to the point. They're starting the test, and this is their chance to prove themselves. One man is confused by what he means with chance, and the leader explains that it's a chance to clear the portal of 100. That announcement shocks everyone there. He adds that they'll be given special treatment, while Elpam realizes this is all part of the old man's game. What he wants is simple, they have to show their worth. Then the portal begins to glow red, and everyone heads through to the other side. They arrive in another forest, and everyone agrees to team up only when it's time to face the boss. After that, the groups split up, planning to regroup once someone gives the signal. Elpam and Debo stay completely quiet. Meanwhile, the other teams keep moving through the woods. One mage says they'll kill anything in their path because they're short on time, and the others back him up. Then a sudden noise makes them stop. It turns out to be a mushroom monster, and they're annoyed by how small it is. Calling it a waste of time, the mage charges his staff and forms a magic orb. He blasts the little creature with a beam. Already bored, he tells the others to grab the magic stone so they can keep moving. But when the smoke clears, the monster is still alive. That shocks everyone. The mage realizes his attack didn't go through and says they'll need another way to deal with it. Then more sounds come from the forest, and the mage quickly warns everyone to hold on and stay alert. They're surrounded by monsters. Sometime later, one of the monsters finally drops dead. By then, the whole group is breathing hard and carrying some nasty injuries. Even so, they're glad the fight is over. The dark-skinned girl asks what they should do now, since these monsters are stronger than normal, and the mage goes quiet for a moment. He knows they can't afford losses, and if they keep fighting like this, they'll run out of stamina before reaching the boss. So he decides it's better to forget the contract and head straight for the boss instead of wasting energy. Elpam says that's what most people will think. A worn-out warrior says that makes sense, then complains he has been standing around. He answers there were only 3 enemies, so he should have handled them. The warrior takes the hint, they can't afford to waste time. The protagonist agrees and says they'll keep going. Debo says they should take down the boss, but MC says they'll clean up the trash instead. The warrior is confused and thought they were after the boss, but Elpam explains he means the other groups. They'll play by the numbers. He says the other teams will all chase boss points, while they go after the weaker monsters. The warrior thinks he always talks like he already knows everything. Then the protagonist adds that this portal feels especially dangerous. Elsewhere, another group moves through the forest. The dark-skinned girl spots something and calls for the leader. They've found the escape portal and suggest leaving marks from here on, but a scream cuts them off. A man behind the mage starts laughing, and the mage demands to know what's going on. The laughter only gets louder. A guy with glasses amberly walks over and warns him to stop before he draws monsters in, but freezes when he sees the man's face. Looking around, he realizes everyone else has started laughing too, and a purple gas is spreading. He figures out it's poison, and decides he has to get out, even if he has to run alone, so he bolts toward the escape portal. Then the source appears, a horrible mushroom monster. Gas pours from the holes all over its body. The mage is horrified. All that fills the air is the monster's creepy laughter. Then he starts laughing too as the poison takes hold. The creature moves closer, and panic fills Amberly's eyes. Later we cut to a clearing with a river running through it. MC and Debo cross it while the warrior notices MC still hasn't fought once all day. Then he spots something in the sky. It's a strange red flare, and he says that's the signal. He knew a flare meant someone had found the boss, but it still catches him off guard. Elpam narrows his eyes. One group is missing. A man with a bandana says that now everyone's here. He'll explain what happened. A girl tries to point out the mage's group still hasn't arrived, but he cuts her off and says there's no point in waiting. Then he tells them they found the boss. They saw it wipe out Dallin, the mage's entire group. The killer was the boss of this portal, a poisonous mushroom that drives people mad. The girl is stunned to hear that it's that monster. As the others panic, Debo asks Elpam if that mushroom is really that dangerous. He keeps thinking, realizing this may be the worst boss they could face in a portal at this level. Debo thinks he's being ignored, but the protagonist is already working through ways they might beat it, even if it won't be easy. The dark-skinned man says the boss is blocking the path to the escape portal, so nobody can leave without facing it. Debo insists MC's fire arrow can kill it, but MC tells him to shut up. That annoys Debo, and he says rushing in without a plan will get them all killed. He adds that even his fire arrow won't do much, which shocks Debo. The protagonist explains that every mushroom in this portal is built like a tank, so the boss should be the same. The dark-skinned man gets annoyed that MC is saying the obvious, but one of his teammates says they need an answer fast. Then he raises his hand and says, 50,000. The man stares, confused. Elpam explains that if each of the 30 people pays 50,000, that comes to 1.5 million. For that price, he and Debo will act as bait. The whole place goes silent. Debo wonders what the protagonist is planning, but then a man yells at Elpam for being arrogant. He says MC may be used to bait tactics, but this boss isn't easy to lure. According to him, following that plan will only get them killed, and slaves are nothing but dead weight in high-rank portals. He even mocks Debo for not looking awakened, then asks what the two of them could possibly do. Debo gets mad and says this is pointless trash talk. The guy just wants a fight. He asks what his plan is since he fired the flare and must have one. The young man answers by pointing out that his team has one second circle fighter and one first circle fighter, which even surprises Debo. Debo gets excited, while the young man adds that the dark-skinned man's team only has 2 second circle members, making him tense. Then the girl from earlier steps in. She says they're willing to pay, but they don't have that much money on them. Elpam says that's fine. They can pay after they get out, and if they don't get out then treat it as a sacrifice. Still, there's one condition. He'll only do it if everyone agrees. Then he tells them to choose. Sometime later, they reach the escape portal area. The mushroom is eating the bodies of the people it killed, when something suddenly shoots at it, a fire arrow that stuns it. The shot lands right in its head. Smoke spreads through the area. Elpam, beside his masked companion, says they'll move once the boss notices them, and Debo asks why they have to do this. Then multiple eyes appear through the purple fog. The creature charges at them at terrifying speed. Both of them run, and Debo can't believe how fast it is. The monster drops to all fours as it chases them. The masked girl from earlier tells everyone to move now and activate the portal before the bait dies. One of them does it by touching the symbol. The portal opens, and she yells for everyone to cross immediately. The huge mushroom keeps chasing Elpam and Daibo, but then Daibo spots something ahead. Several smaller monsters have appeared out of nowhere. He shouts that they won't go down easy, then pours mana into his axe. With a roar, he tells them all to get out of the way. His explosive slash wipes out the whole pack. But right behind him, the giant mushroom comes in with its mouth full of teeth, wide open. Elpam saves him by firing a fire arrow straight into its mouth and knocking it back. Even hurt, the weird mushroom starts laughing. The protagonist fires another arrow at its head, but this time it dodges. Ready for that, Elpam uses his telekinesis ring, forcing the arrow to curve sharply. The mushroom leaps at them with a twisted grin, but it's so fast it keeps slipping past the arrow's strikes. Still, it keeps closing in, while the arrow chases it. Debo yells that it's catching up, and MC suddenly notices a hole ahead. He shouts for Debo to jump with him. Just before they escape, the creature lunges again to grab them. As they fall, Debo yells at it to watch closely, flips it off, and tells it to choke on this barbecue. Elpam stares straight into the monster's eyes, then fires a much stronger arrow into it. The two of them crash down into the stream below. The current is so strong it drags them underwater. Daibo finally reaches the bank, saying he almost died pulling that stunt. Elpam climbs out beside him. Soon the dark-skinned man asks what kind of monster that thing is. He says it's the boss of this portal, and they'll need much better prep if they want to kill it. The man goes quiet. Thrown off by that answer, then asks if the protagonist is seriously talking about killing that thing. Elpam simply says yes, and Daibo loses his temper. They start arguing. Daibo wants to run, but MC refuses. Daibo gets nervous because he already said they'd die if they fought that thing head on. The protagonist says things are different now. The rivals are gone, so the monster sees them as easy food, and if they win, they get extra pay. Then he asks if Daibo forgot about their contract, and that shuts him up. Daibo just stands there, mouth open. Remembering, he scratches his head, admits he forgot, then says he still wants a bonus for all this. Elpam gives a faint smile and agrees. Daibo asks how they're supposed to pull this off. Close attacks failed, ranged attacks failed, and he's not risking his life for no reason. He starts thinking it over. Then he looks at MC and asks if there's actually a way to kill it. Before long, a light appears. It's from the portal. Not bad speed for one made for 40 people. He asks the masked girl how it went, and notices some are missing, especially the young delinquent. She says everyone failed. She explains one team was wiped out, while Elpam stayed behind with another man to act as bait. With only one group, killing Stagnant, the boss here is impossible. The old man goes quiet. Anger and confusion fill his eyes. He says they must have done nothing but run, but the girl snaps back that the boss was the poisonous mushroom of madness. As she shouts there was nothing they could do, the bearded man crushes his cigar underfoot. Then he turns and tells them to head back, leaving the girl stunned. She points out Elpam's group still hasn't come through, and the portal is active, so they're alive. But the leader says it's only a matter of time. Like she said, the poisonous mushroom of madness can't be beaten. If they want to wait, fine, but he's done wasting time. Inwardly, he curses them for being useless, and blames their terrible luck. A two-circle mage can't kill a monster like that, and these average adventurers are no help to him. Then the mushroom appears in the forest, while the leader thinks about wanting someone who can break through any wall. What he wants is someone who can make the impossible real. Elpam says it's time to begin the hunt. Then he unleashes a massive fire arrow. This one is stronger than before, and shoots forward at incredible speed. The boss is faster and tougher than anything they've faced, so the best move is to stay far away and hit hard. Elpam still can't reach that power with a normal fire arrow, but adding telekinesis to spin it at high speed might do it. That drilling force should boost its power a lot. He made this technique in this world by copying the idea of a bullet, something that normally shouldn't even be possible. He calls it natural revolver. With that, the shot races toward the mushroom and slams straight into its chest. The creature lets out a sharp scream. The arrow drills into its chest, tearing through the monster's tough body. Elpam watches without looking away. The hit is so strong it blasts through more than a dozen trees, but he was aiming for the head and the core, so he missed. The mushroom hears someone call out that things are about to get worse, and it roars toward the voice. It charges in that direction as a strange light shines above it, but it quickly dodges another revolver shot. Elpam realizes this move is hard to use while moving, and the biggest issue is the charge time. He has to end this before the monster reaches his spot. The creature avoids another blast, and someone is waiting behind the trees. Covered in blood, the monster grunts in confusion. Elpam shouts that now's the time. Daibo tightens his grip on the rope and yanks with all his strength, yelling as he does. The rope stretches across a huge distance, catching the creature off guard and tripping it. It crashes into a muddy pool. The enraged monster gets back up and realizes it's stuck in a swamp that slows it down. From above, Elpam watches the beast in silence. With its pores clogged by mud, it can't release its gas anymore, and it shrieks. Then someone yells and hurls an axe at the mushroom, smashing it into the creature's head and drawing blood. Gembo pulls the axe back with the rope tied to it, then grabs the handle again. The beast looks confused, as Dembo says they can finally breathe. He calls the monster closer, saying the air feels nice now, so let's have some fun. At that point, everything was finally set. Their plan was to drag the monster into the swamp and shut down its deadliest weapon. Soon Dembo asks if it's mad that all the holes on its face got blocked, then swings his weapon and says too bad for the monster. In one motion, he lets go of the axe handle and uses the rope to swing it from far away. The monster still blocks, but the hit clearly hurts. Even then, Daibo keeps attacking without stopping, while the creature can only scream and defend itself. Soon the beast finds an opening and slips past the axe. Elpam thinks he didn't bring it here just to seal its holes. A muddy swamp is the worst ground for a fast monster, because the water and mud ruin its movement. From the top of the cliff, he uses natural revolver again, and fires a flaming shot into the mushroom's arm. The impact is so strong it punches a fresh hole through the limb. The blast shakes the area, startling Dulbo. He asks if the thing is finally dead, and if they can take a break. But when he sees its shape still standing, he admits he spoke too soon. This thing just won't go down. Elpam shouts for him to target the core, which should be near the head. Dulbo gets it, and throws his axe at the monster again. The mushroom watches it come in, the faces on its head seeming to stare back, then catches the axe that was about to cut its head off. Daibo stares in shock, wondering how that's possible. Then the giant's force suddenly drags him forward. Elpam reacts at once and uses his ring skill, moving a nearby log. It slams into the creature's face, while Debo grabs onto a branch. The beast tries to knock the log away and grab Debo, but by then he's already behind it, kicking off with an attack. His strike hits the monster's shell, and it screams in pain. Debo quickly jumps to another tree and pulls his axe back, weapon in hand. His stance turns deadly serious, and he launches himself at the beast at full speed. He circles around the giant so fast that it loses track of him. Perfectly timed, Elpam raises his hand and uses the ring again, creating huge walls of water that trap and rattle the monster. The spray blocks its view again, and Debo's silhouette appears through the water, ready to finish it. But with the mud washed off its face holes, the monster senses him at last and swings an arm to crush him. Then it jolts when it realizes there's nothing there. Debo is already behind it, and he brings his axe down. His eyes are steady and cold, like a real assassin's, and he cleanly cuts off the head of the creature that killed so many people. The severed top flies far from the lake. Rain starts falling over the swamp after the massive clash. Debo is totally spent, breathing hard, but he still gives Elpam a thumbs up with a smile under his mask. The protagonist returns it as the wind brushes past him. Then his eyes suddenly go wide. The body is still alive and charging straight at Debo. It slams him in the head and sends him to the ground. Even without its upper half, the creature keeps shrieking in rage and pain. Elpam can't believe it. He's sure he destroyed the head, where the core should have been. He fires again, but the shot only hits the water and misses. Smoke spreads through the area, showing the monster dodged. Even in the swamp, the body keeps rushing toward MC with shocking speed. As he moves his hands, he wonders if he missed something. He lifts the creature's support to throw it off balance, but that only helps. It leaps at him. It can't jump anywhere near its full height, yet it still sticks to the cliff wall and starts climbing toward him. Elpam knows he has enough mana for only one last fire arrow, so this shot has to count. But someone suddenly rises, shouting to the sky. It's Debo, mask cracked and axe damaged, growling that he's had enough. In one quick move, he uses explosive strike and charges the giant corpse as it climbs. The blow is so powerful, it splits half the body apart. The legs drop into the swamp, proving the core isn't there. Debo gets excited, thinking they finally killed the mushroom beast, but the headless, legless body still keeps dragging itself toward Elpam. Debo tries to warn his leader, it's too dangerous, and he is almost out of mana. Another shot is fired, and the creature dodges it again. Something is exposed in its chest. Inside is a weird slime, almost like it's mocking them. That finally reveals the truth. This slime is the mushroom monster's real head. Elpam is stunned, then thanks it for showing itself so nicely. Debo realizes the protagonist used a flare, so the last attack was just a bluff. But his staff is already covered in fire, ready for another shot. He fires with perfect aim, hitting the center of the half-dead monster. The hidden head shrieks as the pain hits. Then the blast tears straight through it and finally kills it for good. A huge explosion follows, and Elpam poses like he planned it. At the same time, a massive wave of poison rushes toward Debo. He yells that this thing is a pain in the ass even at the very end. Then MC uses his power to yank his partner up the cliff. The man thanks him, admitting he thought he was dead. The poison spreads through the forest, but it doesn't rise very high. When Debo asks if it's really over, Elpam calmly says yes. He also tells his partner he did great all the way through. After the poison clears, they collect the mana stone. But something suddenly catches his eye, and he freezes. The monster's torso has leaped onto the cliff, still spewing poison. So the core is still inside. It isn't dead yet, and it screams in rage and pain. Then it blasts both of them with another huge cloud of poison. Debo tenses up and can only laugh as death closes in. Soon after, we return to the two key men, with one laughing that his companion came back empty-handed. Still amused, he says that temper of his hasn't changed at all. The man with the eye patch apologizes and says they should have left this to the knights. Then someone knocks, and he tells them to go away. Instead, the visitor says he's coming in anyway, which annoys everyone, until the man's face turns to pure shock. It's Elpam, back again, speaking with total confidence. The seated man breaks into a huge smile. He says the boy is just as interesting as he was in battle. The man in the chair asks what's going on. It's like someone came back from the grave. He introduces himself as Rakan, says it's a pleasure to meet Elpam, and adds that the rumors about his surface skills were true. People like him are exactly what Gafor needs, and the protagonist thanks him. Then the dark-skinned man says he has just one question. Smiling, he asks if MC could use that ability again at a gate, with 100 men. He narrows his eyes and thinks for a long moment. Then he closes them and says it would be very difficult. That answer catches the seated man off guard, and leaves him quiet. His companion snaps that this is no way to speak to Mr. Hakan, and Elpam isn't some adventurer who gets to choose missions. After all, he's still a slave paying off his debt. But the seated man just laughs and says it may not be impossible after all. He says he hates wasting time, so he'll ask something else. Looking straight at Elpam, he asks what he truly wants in return for his work. Sometime later, Debo spits out his drink because the protagonist asked for 5 million meso per person, which is a huge amount. When he realizes he sprayed his boss, he quickly apologizes. Then he says MC is aiming way too high, and they'll probably reject it. Wiping his face, he says that's their choice to make. Debo says that cool attitude is very Elpam, but he should still be careful. Then Selman walks up and says they look pretty relaxed, while his side feels like death is knocking at the door. Annoyed, Debo asks what he wants. Is this really how they thank the people who saved them? But both of them suddenly bow and apologize at once. They admit they judged them unfairly, feel ashamed as adventurers, and sincerely want to make it right. Then they hand over a money bag, saying it's the promised pay for 30 people, plus extra from everyone as thanks. Elpam says they don't need that. The deal was only 1.5 million for them. He simply did the job he was hired for, so they can keep the thanks. In a firmer tone, he tells them not to jump to conclusions again like they did at the last portal. That heavy pressure from the protagonist makes both of them stiffen. Seeing that, Tienbo grumbles that he got excited for nothing. Now he has to count the money and remove the bonus. Elpam then calls out to the pirate, and asks if his name is really Iburo. He adds that maybe the man isn't suited for the job he's paid to do. Elsewhere, someone is shouting that they can't do this. It's the Eye Patch Man, arguing that 10 million is outrageous. That's pay for 3rd and 4th cycle mages and adventurers. He says MC may just be protecting himself, so it's better to bring them in and settle the terms directly. But the other man asks if he really believes that, because asking for twice that much still wouldn't be strange, which only confuses him more. He quickly hands over a paper and tells him to read it. It says Elpam's group will represent the Gafor Merchant Union this time. After reading it, the man starts trembling and asks what this means. He shouts that this can't be real, and the reply is that the old man would have been in trouble if it weren't. He paid a lot for this information. Then comes the real reveal. The Dark Lord Jim is starting to move, and his companion goes completely tense. Holding a pen, Rakan tells Abyss not to fool himself, because the war has already begun. Later, they arrive at a sunny forest clearing, where a giant tree holds a portal, and different groups are camped around it. Several teams chat casually, almost friendly. Then someone says they didn't expect these terms to be accepted. It's Elpam and Debo, with Debo reminding him he's an experienced adventurer now, and shouldn't get too excited. Their cloaks clearly carry the Gaffer Guild symbol. People nearby notice it and whisper among themselves. Others grip their weapons and watch them closely. Debo says the mood feels off, and then someone points out they've got new faces here. A blonde man steps up, says they must be the newcomers, introduces himself as Sheldon, and says he's an E-rank adventurer. Elpam quickly introduces himself as a C-level member from the guild. Shocked, Sheldon asks how that's possible. He thought only second circle adventurers could enter because of the gate's limits. He stays quiet and just listens to the man's doubts. Then someone else walks over and says the old man should give them some room. It's a blonde woman who says she has business with the new arrivals. Clicking his tongue, the old man leaves, muttering about whether these guys are really with them. Elpam keeps a wary look on his face. He remembers asking earlier why he had to do this, only to be told to follow orders and stop asking questions. The explanation was simple. The Gaffer Merchant Union would work with the Cygnus Knight Order at this dungeon gate for better results. They follow the Empress of Cygnus, the strongest figure in the order, called the Symbol of Power, and she's taken special interest in this gate. Other unions had already filled the entry limit, so this team-up was the best choice, and even if they're still Knight trainees, their odds are high. They may have their own reasons for being here, but the offer was good enough, so both sides will stay friendly for now. Elpam says cooperation won't be a problem, but his boss warns him not to expect it to be easy, because something about them smells wrong to his adventurer instincts. The blonde woman introduces herself as Kiri, leader of the Cygnus Order beginners, and says they shouldn't mistake her for someone on their level. In a proud tone, she adds that she wants no extra trouble, and expects her orders to be obeyed without complaint, which irritates Debo. Kiri quickly asks if the merchant union sent only them, and the answer seems to be yes. Annoyed, she asks if they're really taking this seriously, or treating it like a joke. Then someone else approaches with heavy steps. It's Krokos's group, representing another union. Nearby, the Kubal's representatives are also here to challenge the gate. Debo is impressed. These are elite teams from the merchant unions, and the whole mood shifts. Then another group arrives, and draws everyone's attention. It's the three Nadisha sisters, representing the Goldrich Merchant Union. Their union mark is clearly displayed on their chests. The blonde snaps that showing up like this is plain arrogant. A voice quickly tells everyone to focus. He greets them and says they were picked to guard this raid, and help anyone who comes back out. Even if some details are unclear, he goes over the rules again so nobody lets their guard down. The legendary item from this gate won't belong to whoever finds it. It goes to the merchant unions, who will split it up. But if anyone breaks the rules, especially by trying to steal loot from this place, they will answer to a B-rank adventurer squad. The man's arm has far more circles than our protagonists, and Debo instantly understands those adventurers are on another level. He asks if they all have that many marks. With the warning finished, everyone is now free to enter. The woman tells them to follow her because she'll take the lead from here. She adds with total confidence that they'll be the ones who win in the end. The warrior asks what her problem is. She's acting way too arrogant toward people working with her. Our protagonist stays doubtful, but says he's finally here. Everything he did was for this gate. He never got to enter it in his past life, so this time he has to make it count. This is where it all begins, and he tells his companion to come with him. The boy follows right away. A red light suddenly fills their view. One group arrives, and its leader immediately orders everyone to move. The warrior notices the grass here is incredibly tall. The knight snaps back, asking if he thinks this is a fun stroll, and tells him to quit messing around and keep up. Annoyed, Debo asks his boss if they're really going to put up with this, but when he turns, he sees his companion crouched low with his ear near the ground. Debo asks what he's doing, while the boy listens for vibrations in the earth. At that moment, countless animal legs are rushing their way. One man mutters that he heard something and wonders what it is. Then a herd of ribbon pigs suddenly charges at them. There are at least thousands of them. The blonde yells for everyone to dodge since most groups haven't entered yet, and says it's basic strategy not to drag danger back to the entrance gate. Everyone scatters at once, each trying to stay alive. At a fork in the path, the group split up, while the huge swarm keeps rushing forward at terrifying speed. The knights keep running as the monsters shriek and chase after them. The blonde says they'll draw them somewhere with more obstacles and kill them there. But then they realize the Gaffer Merchant Union team is gone. A little later, someone says the place feels pretty refreshing. It's the warrior, finally catching his breath, and he says his boss was right to notice the pigs getting restless. The boy explains, it was only because of experience. Lots of herds move across plains like this. These monsters are aggressive and usually attack in massive groups. They're hard to deal with, but not impossible to kill. Still, the merchant team should save their strength. Nobody knows what monster they'll really have to face, and wiping out the pigs might not clear the portal. Before he came back, a 100-man raid on this gate ended in total failure, and every adventurer died horribly. Debo starts walking and asks what his boss is doing and thinking so hard about. Then his foot brushes over a rope, and he freezes. A sound snaps through the area, and the man's eyes go wide. His boss yanks him away at once. Debo shouts, asking what that was, but he quickly realizes it was a trap meant to kill him. That leaves him asking who else could have set it besides humans. Elsewhere, someone is cutting ropes nearby. A huge log swings toward a bald man, who was distracted for a second. A sharp slash cuts through the air, and the flying log is split apart before it can hit him. He scoffs that this is all childish, and a companion says he just cleared the area, so that should have been the last trap. Another man walks up and tells Babel not to relax yet. Everyone recognizes him as Crocus, their leader. Even if they removed a few simple traps, there's still a bigger problem. The monsters here are smart. That means they're likely dealing with ogres, enemies strong enough to match the final boss of a red portal. Now they know what kind of danger they're in. This portal is high level, and without someone like him, they'd all be dead already. He turns and says they should use the situation to their advantage, then tells them to follow. But when he hears something hit the ground, he warns them not to drop anything. Then he looks and realizes it's his companion's head. A massacre erupts, wiping out the whole group. The attacker appears and finishes off the leader before he can fight back. The old man's body drops as he wonders who could do something like this. The killer calls him a fool for acting like he understood everything. Somewhere else, someone remarks that using ribbon pigs to distract the people entering the portal was a clever move. He doesn't know whose plan it was, but it worked perfectly, and now they can start moving. The man lets out a sigh, saying this is seriously annoying. He rises with his staff and says there's no more time to waste, they have to begin. The three red-haired sisters stand frozen like statues, their hands twitch trying to strike the person in front of them. The mage tells them not to bother, his spell will keep them from moving for the next 30 minutes. One of the women struggles to ask why he's doing this. The older man is surprised she can still speak under his magic. Since she's the most dangerous one there, he decides to kill her first. The other two start shaking and crying in fear. The mage crouches and says that's a hard question, almost asking himself the same thing. Then an answer suddenly comes to him. Fire wraps around his staff, and he says this should make things easier to understand. With a cruel smile, he says this is for his master, the dark mage. He fires a flaming arrow spell at the frozen sisters. The brutal hit kills them on the spot. Their bodies drop as blood sprays through the air. Then he hears someone else entering the portal, and sighs in frustration. All he wants is a moment of quiet rest and service to his lord. They've stayed hidden in the shadows for a long time, building power and spreading their influence everywhere. Now it's finally time to enjoy the results of all that work, and rise over humanity. The tired man vows he won't disappoint him, no matter what. He holds out a feather of fire and says it was a gift from that person, so failure is not acceptable. The old man stiffens, knowing he can't really resist after what was done to him. He slams his staff onto the ground and says he has no choice. Then he wonders if he should take this more seriously than the last times he did this. Night finally falls. A creature pants hard, worn out and drooling. There are multiple ogres gathered there. From a distance, our protagonist and his companion watch in confusion. Tebebo quietly asks what they're looking at. As panic starts creeping in, he whispers, asking if all of those monsters are boss level, and is told only one of them is the true leader. Even so, Every single one is tough and naturally powerful. Fighting even one is dangerous enough. And they're stealing items too. Some of those stolen weapons let the user activate abilities, which will make future fights even worse. Debo asks what the two of them are supposed to do against an army like this, adding that things would be better if the blonde were here. Our protagonist is surprised he actually wants her help, but Debo points out they'd at least have a better shot with one more ally. A little later, a small patrol circles the fort in neat formation. The wind blows hard through the area. Then someone approaches, and an ogre turns toward the sound. Debo swings his axe, but the creature slips away so fast it catches him off guard. He yells that the protagonist had to do this on purpose. He already said he never wanted to face this thing alone. The monster winds up and throws a brutal attack at the warrior, but he reacts fast, slamming his axe into the ground, and using the push to flip away from the hit. When he lands, he stays on guard. A long fight follows, with the axe fighter narrowly avoiding every strike the ogre throws. Then he snaps back, jamming the handle of his axe into the giant beast, and using the rebound, slices off one of the monster's limbs. The beast charges again, but the warrior dodges and makes it crash to the ground. Life energy starts gathering around the axe, as the berserker roars that his enemy's soul can go to hell. But just as he goes for the finish, the creature dodges, leaving him stunned. Sliding along the ground, the ogre pulls back its fist and aims at the airborne man. The punch lands hard on the protagonist's companion, sending him into a tree, even though he blocked with his axe. Furious, he demands to know why this thing just won't die, and keeps coming. The crazed ogre charges again in a blind rage, smashing the tree after the warrior drops to the ground to avoid it. He plants his foot and steadies himself for the next attack. Then he unleashes an explosive strike and cuts off one of the creature's main weapons. But the monster instantly grabs his head with its other hand and crushes down, making him groan. Even then, Debo quickly wraps his legs around the arm holding him and twists into a brutal arm lock to force the monster back. Afraid of losing another limb, the orc hurls him away. Debo doesn't give it room to breathe. He leaps right back in to end it. After dragging on this long, the fight is finally reaching its end. A few hours later, deep into the night, one of the injured men says he thought his companion would step in and help. The protagonist says it looked like his friend could handle it, and now they know these monsters can be killed, which only annoys the other man more. Then the dark-skinned man suddenly freezes at something ahead. Bodies are scattered everywhere, and he asks what happened here. They recognize them as the Cygnus Meg sent with their group, so they first suspect the orcs did it, but then someone nearby groans through a bloody mouth. The warrior tells his boss to look and the protagonist turns quietly. He realizes there's one survivor from the massacre. Walking over, he asks what happened, assuming ogres from inside the portal attacked them. The light-haired survivor says no, the one behind it was an assassin. Elsewhere, Abyss sits in his chair late at night, smoking, and the more he thinks about it, the less it adds up. Assassins are people who enter special portals others can't, gather intel, and kill adventurers. But this mission has no clear winner, and risking that much inside a portal makes no sense when anyone could just run away. These adventurers are elites from the merchant unions, and even if a third union was involved, there'd be nothing for assassins to gain here. The warrior asks his boss if this is really what it looks like, and he says yes because he spotted that blonde girl among the bodies a while ago. Badly hurt, the man slams his fist into the ground and curses the sky. He blames himself for not expecting a traitor among them, and can't understand why Lady Kiri would do something like this. The protagonist hears it all, and says he doesn't get it either. There's no reason for her to be one of the assassins here. The other man says he doesn't understand it yet either, but every attack seemed to follow her orders. Before she left, she said one last thing, that she served the Dark Mage. Debo is stunned, and asks if that can really be true. They explain that this was a being from 800 years ago, a transcendent who threatened the whole world with his followers. The 6 heroes rose against him, turned the war around, and in the end, all of them were sealed away together. With the Dark Mage's army thrown into chaos, the Allied forces pushed forward and wiped out his followers. Anyone in Maple would know that story, so Debo insists it can't be true. He still can't accept it. But the protagonist says this isn't the time to dwell on that. They need to go after her. He asks if the wounded man is coming too, because he'll have to be ready to fight her when they find her. With full resolve, the man says that's exactly what he wants. He intends to avenge his companions. At that moment, someone runs with light, quick steps. It's the Nigus, fleeing from something that has her badly shaken. Then she spots someone ahead, and stops at once. A man stands before her and welcomes her, saying he's been waiting. He calls her Lady Kiri, and addresses the assassin with her in that dim place. Laughing, he says she dealt with the ribbon pigs and kept their plan moving smoothly. Then he asks if she received the gift sent to her, and she stays silent. With her sword ready, she demands to know who they are, and why they're wasting her time. Elsewhere, Debo says they can slow down since the boss is already ahead, but the injured man insists he's fine. Debo reassures him, his chief is great at tracking things, so they'll find her for sure. Secretly, the man grips a dagger and channels dark energy into it. Soon, morning begins to rise over the troubled land. Someone sprints straight at an enemy. It's the knight, attacking one of the assassins while the target barely blocks her strike. The mage admits it's impressive, just what you'd expect from the captain of the Cygnus Knights. Still, he wonders how much longer she can hold on before death reaches her. She steps forward firmly, golden aura pouring off her. Then she takes the rising sun stance. One assassin rushes in, shouting that it's time for her to die and finish the job. The blonde blocks the attack and immediately drives forward with her blade. Her enemy even tries to beg for mercy, pleading to be spared, but the blonde answers with a solar strike that wipes the assassin out. She's breathing hard now, worn down by the long fight. Even so, she stands her ground and orders them to explain themselves if they don't want to die next. The mage, fed up, tells his allies to stop wasting time and kill her now. All of them charge at once, shouting for her to die. Then a shadow bursts out from the forest and catches everyone off guard. The newcomer crushes them all in one blow with a heavy weapon. Even the mage is stunned. He was sure the others were already dead. The blonde is even more shocked, her heart racing with hope as she recognizes him. It's the protagonist's warrior companion, staring at her with fierce focus. A flashback shows the man saying they're going to find her soon. The wounded man agrees, while pouring aura into the dagger in his hand. Then he grabs Debo by the neck and tells him to give Lady Kiri his regards in hell. Before he can do more, a sudden flame slices off his hand. Screaming, the fake knight drops to the ground, while the warrior stares in confusion. But the protagonist only looks at him coldly, listening to the desperate cries of the assassin in front of him. The dark-skinned man calls out to his boss, still unable to understand what's happening. The protagonist says it all happened exactly like he thought. That story they were told was just too weak to believe. Then he tells the assassin there's something he should know about him. The protagonist never trusts someone that easily, no matter how he seems. Back in the present fight, the mage admits this has become very strange. The thought of an uninvited guest showing up never even crossed his mind. Owena tries to tell Mr. William that he's from the Gaper Merchant Union, and if they survived, that can only mean one thing. The cowardly rat who couldn't even end his own pain was killed by them, and someone made a mistake. He lets out a sigh, annoyed that these two are stronger than expected. So now the elite are stepping in to deal with them. The blonde warns him to be careful, but Tiem Xiaobei says he already knows. Then he jokes that these guys are total freaks, leaving her confused. The mage raises his arm and says they'll end this fast as his men rush the two warriors. Debo tells her to handle at least one, while he takes the rest, and not to let her guard down. One attacker opens with a move called Savagery, making Debo jump aside. Using that motion, the man swings sideways, forcing Debo to duck. Still smiling, Debo says this guy is about to die painfully, but a sharp attack suddenly flies at his head, and he barely dodges, wondering what just tried to kill him. An archer is aiming at him, tense and ready. Caught off guard, Debo doesn't notice the attack coming from behind, and curses them all. When he looks back, he sees magic rushing toward him. A skill called Superior Charge slashes across his back, and the hit burns with pain. Still, the cut isn't deep enough, and the assassin realizes his best move failed. He starts laughing, and says he'll put Debo out of his misery himself. Then he throws another heavy strike at the still-standing warrior. The wounded man yells at the idiot to move, warning him not to take this lightly. But the blade crashes into the ground. By then, Tianbo is already behind him. Tianbo tells him to stop yelling because he was only messing with him. Right after that, he swings once and cuts the man down cleanly. Another assassin charges in with a spear, shouting curses at Debo. Debo slips past every thrust with ease. He answers with an explosive slash. The man dodges, but his spear gets cut apart. Debo quickly resets his footing and holds his ground like a veteran. The assassin can't believe it, asking how someone from a circle can be this strong. Then someone calls it pathetic and throws a body at him. The man isn't dead. He's still groaning as his face drags through the dirt. With her leg still raised, the blonde mocks them and asks if this is really the mage's elite. Angry now, the spearman says they are the strongest assassin force and won't take that insult. Then another man says he'll step in now that this fight is getting messy. He says this is as far as they go. They already wasted too much time watching these useless allies duel. Debo instantly senses a fire arrow about to be fired at him. Once he spots it, he freezes for a moment. The shot is even faster than his boss's arrows, and that man was already a monster. The attack explodes on impact. The mage smiles, saying Debo must have let his guard down. This spell is on a whole different level, and there was no dodging it. It's over. After that, they'll destroy the portal and leave for good. But suddenly, something feels off, and his eyes go wide. Our protagonist steps out of the flames without a scratch. He stands there calm and determined, staring them down. The mage demands to know who this guy is and how he lived through his strongest attack. Instead, our protagonist points ahead with his gravity and telekinesis. He says they can talk about that later. Other guests need a welcome first. A chief of the Ribbon Pigs is charging the assassins, chasing the one our protagonist led over. They both panic because it's the same trick they used before, only now it's being used on them. A huge herd comes stampeding in, ready to tear them apart. Hours pass as the creature keeps screaming and fighting on. After taking so much damage, it finally collapses and dies. Completely worn out, The mage admits that thing was more trouble than expected, and they only escaped by dropping it onto the others. He calls for his companion, who quickly apologizes. That man is still finishing off the remaining creatures nearby. The mage says there's no time to regroup, so they move on and the others obey. If our protagonist group gets out of the portal, their whole organization will have a serious problem. Still, the mage is curious about one thing, so he says he'll deal with the cloaked man himself. A warrior tells him not to, saying that guy didn't look like some random fool, which only annoys the mage more. He insists no one inside the portal is stronger than him. Elsewhere in the forest, someone trudges forward with heavy steps. It's our protagonist's group, and Debo laughs, saying the pigs probably finished those guys off. He keeps watching the area and asks why the protagonist didn't kill the rest. The answer shocks him. The boy says that man was stronger than he is. He thinks back to the fire arrow. It came at Debo with terrifying speed. Our protagonist instantly cast the same spell and fired back. The two arrows collided and exploded, throwing his companion backward. Even then he kept his eyes steady and his staff in hand, but his spell still couldn't fully stop it. That made him widen his eyes in shock, because his magic only changed the arrow's path a little, and barely touched the mana behind it. Tio laughs and says that's impossible. Nobody should be stronger than his boss right now. The protagonist says he isn't joking, and Debo realizes they really did run from that guy. Then the protagonist starts unwrapping the leather on his forearm, drawing everyone's attention. He shows that his circle has expanded as far as it can, and wonders why. He explains that even with the same magic, thickness changes its speed and power. That makes the mage hard to figure out, because entering this place should mean he's only second circle too, just like the protagonist. Something must have boosted him, making him the strongest adventurer in the portal. That leaves Debo uneasy, and the blonde silent. They ask what they should do, since they don't know what enemies are waiting, and someone points out that even ogres can be used against humans. But another voice says they're missing the real issue. What matters most is that one of the Black Mage's followers was hiding among the Cygnus Knights, and that news has to get out now, so they need to leave the portal as fast as possible. With a shaking hand, he tells the boys to give up on clearing it, but the young man says that won't solve anything, making Debo look over. The blonde says he really does think like a former slave, but chasing a tiny completion reward is pointless. Our protagonist says warning the people outside won't change anything. She still believes they can deal with those men, but those followers have been hiding for hundreds of years. They've sunk deep in and become parasites feeding on the Maple Kingdom where no one can see them. That claim makes the woman furious, and she grits her teeth. She snaps that he's being way too negative and asks what he expects them to do in a situation this hopeless. To her, he's just throwing out nonsense with no plan while they're being hunted and need to escape now. But the boy smiles with confidence and says they should inform them first, because the real prey are walking right toward the hunters, thinking this forest gives them the advantage. A few hours later, the wind moves through the forest. Someone sprints hard in one direction, pounding the ground as he runs. It's one of the assassins, still searching for our protagonist after all the chaos. He shouts that they have to find them fast. If they escape the portal, they'll all lose their heads. Then someone suddenly appears behind him. With a cocky grin, Debo greets the veteran. He swings his axe at once, but the man ducks under it. The spearman calls him an idiot and says he'll kill him this time. But at that moment, someone off to the side cuts a rope. A huge log slams into the spearman's back as he charges Debo. The blonde set the trap, and she sighs in annoyance that it actually worked. Debo, annoyed too, lifts his axe and says his enemy shouldn't lose focus against someone this strong. As he attacks again, the man dodges and twists his body to stab a dagger at Debo's neck. Debo slips away with quick reflexes, taking only a small cut on his face. The blonde barely gets the question out before something heavy flies at his face. It's Debo's leg. He's dropped the axe and gone straight into close combat. Letting the weapon fall, he steps in to crush the man with his bare hands. What follows is a full beating with no room at all for the blonde to fight back. Every blow is savage, and Debo stays locked in. He knows this enemy can't be given a single opening. The punches tear the man's face open, leaving him screaming in pain. Not far away, the girl with the bow watches in confusion. She starts to ask what's going on, but misses the killer coming up behind her. Pure instinct saves her, and she slips away from the strike at the last second. The knight keeps pressing hard, moving with sharp skill while the woman struggles to avoid each attack. Then the blonde pours all her aura into her golden sword. The archer has no choice but to raise her crossbow and block. The knight snaps that looking away now is a terrible idea. Her patience is already gone, after everything that's happened. In a quieter spot, the air turns tense. The mage arrives, saying the battle has started, but one person there has really caught his interest. He asks the protagonist if he'd been waiting for him the whole time. The boy says nothing, just grips his staff and stares back. A strange fire flares from both weapons as they signal the start. Both sides charge up fire arrows for a final showdown. Their shots crash together, and once again the assassin's attack wins out. The protagonist quickly darts aside and avoids the hit. He keeps his eyes steady, already working out a plan. Then he fires another arrow of flame at his enemy. The man widens his eyes and admits the boy really is impressive. A massive blast erupts between them. The boy throws up his forearm to keep the dust out of his eyes. For a moment, all that's left is smoke. Then a sudden strike shoots straight for his head, catching him off guard. He dodges in time and realizes it wasn't magic at all. It was a rock, thrown to distract him. From behind, the black mage mocks him, asking if that's really all he can do. He instantly sends another fire arrow, trying to finish the fight. Time passes, and the whole forest is soon swallowed by red flames. Inside them stands a familiar figure, and the protagonist keeps staring him down, wary but unshaken. The mage says that dodge took real skill. He admits it surprised him. He wasn't even sure he could stop that attack himself. Then he asks how the boy pulled it off, but gets no answer. He takes the silence in stride, saying that's not a bad habit. Talking too much in a fight just gets you killed. Another fire arrow flies out, as he says he'll figure it out on his own. The boy watches it come without flinching. Then he uses his own skill, revolver. The other man is stunned, staring wide-eyed and asking how that's possible. The boy is using telekinesis to spin the fire arrow like a drill, boring straight through the mage's spell, something he's never seen in all his years of killing. Their powers collide and explode. To him, this is unbelievable, because boosting a skill with telekinesis is the mark of only one kind of person, so he calls the protagonist a real smiling. He says that title just makes him hate people like him even more. He launches another fire arrow, eager to keep going, and tells the boy to show him more. The boy thrusts out his fist and activates his ring. A stone wall rises to hide him as the shot closes in. He dives aside just as the attack punches through the wall and exposes him. The mage calls that reckless, saying hiding won't help in a fight, but the boy lifts his palm again, and the black mage notices at once. He ducks fast, realizing a fire arrow is being sent back at him. The protagonist moves his hand again, guiding the attack without losing any power, and now the mage is the one struggling to move. Even so, he weaves through the strikes with shocking speed for a mage. Veins bulge on his forehead as his anger starts boiling over. He fires yet another arrow, saying he's done playing around. The boy stays calm as it rushes toward him. He answers with revolver, one more time. Another huge blast goes off, forcing him to shield himself again, but that was exactly what the enemy wanted. The mage says the boy must have burned through all his charges as his ring glows green. At once he uses poison breath to kill him. The young man watches as the smoke races his way. It spreads through the whole area so fast that there seems to be nowhere left to escape. Wind starts churning through the green cloud. The man calls it a useful skill, but says it leaves too many openings while it's being cast. He figures he can shut down the boy's offense by forcing his fire arrows into cooldown. That means the boy won't be able to use them for the next 30 minutes. With his other abilities down too, he'll have to beg for mercy with nothing but a dagger. That's the part the mage enjoys most, and he can barely contain himself. He starts wondering what kind of desperate face the boy will make when the blade finishes him. But instead of panicking, the protagonist moves straight toward him. His fist tightens, and it becomes clear he didn't just boost his mind, he strengthened his body too. The assassin mage freezes in shock for a moment, and the boy uses it well, proving a mage still needs to handle close combat. His punch lands brutally, knocking out teeth and crushing the assassin's face with raw force. The boy doesn't stop for a second, he just keeps advancing. The assassin is thrown backward with no chance to answer. A flashback shows the pirate asking how the boy did that. He can't understand how they beat the poisonous mushroom, and says the boy better explain. Debo just laughs and says it wouldn't help. Even if he told him, it's not something anyone can copy on command. The boy used a skill called Room, pulling all the poison away with telekinesis and throwing it elsewhere. The man thinks it sounds like a total scam, and Debo laughs because that's exactly what everyone says. His boss's abilities are basically cheating, and beating him up close is just as impossible. Now the mage is finding that out himself, drooling as he tries to use poison again. The boy shuts him up with a clean hook to the jaw. Without pausing, he pulls back for another heavy hit. 3 fast punches slam into the ugly man's stomach. The force sends him flying into a tree, hard enough to nearly topple it. Then the boy's staff starts floating, lifted by telekinesis. It snaps into his hand, and he grabs it tight. At once he takes aim for his signature fire arrow. The wounded assassin can only look up through the pain. Then his eyes go wide. Something is very wrong. The shot is so strong it rips the tree out of the ground and even tears off one of the assassin's limbs. But when the arm hits the ground, it's clear the black mage still isn't finished. He's shaking with rage, and his green ring is still glowing bright. He sends poison at the protagonist again, yelling that he can't lose to someone like him. The boy calmly raises his hand and uses his own artifact. With telekinesis, he casts Room again, and keeps the poison from reaching him. Still, the boy suspects a trick. This mage is acting crazy, but he must be setting up something. Since poison breath failed, he figures the mage will try to get his staff back, so he waits for that move. He thinks that will be his chance to end it, without noticing a giant fireball sneaking up behind him. It slams into his back, blasting him forward in sudden terrible pain. His face twists in shock and fear. He can't understand how that attack happened without the staff. Then we see the assassin, arms stretched out and laughing, with a magic circle beside him. The real source was his bracelet, and through his laughter he swears he'll tear the boy apart for this. The boy drops to the ground after the brutal hit. Blood spills from his mouth from the damage of that last attack. He admits he let his guard down at the worst time, a bad mistake for someone with his experience. He never saw that flame orb coming, and in his past life he wouldn't have slipped like that. As the fireballs close in, it's clear the boy really has gotten rusty as an adventurer. Far from that blast, the warrior stands over his fallen enemy, one hand covered in blood. He freezes, confused by what just happened, while the other man lies there groaning and unconscious. Then a sudden flash goes off near Daibo. It's the knight. She's already taken down the two assassins, including the spearman and that annoying archer. The blonde snaps at him to stop messing around and end it, because this enemy is too much for the protagonist to handle alone. Then something bursts, the eye of the man hit by an arrow, making the warrior flinch again. Right after that, heavy footsteps start coming closer. The Obers have arrived, armed and moving in force. He says they were bound to show up, but she urges him to run now, and not to take these enemies lightly. This time, they're not just strong. There's also something about them that sets off every warning in their bodies. It's the strange one leading them, staring them down with a savage, bloodthirsty look. The mage stares into the flames, wondering if that bastard is finally dead. His magic circles spread across his skin, showing how worn out his body is, and he throws up from the strain. A huge stream of ketchup spills onto the ground from all the damage and spell use. Still, he admits it wasn't bad. He never thought the fight would go this far, and maybe he should have asked the boy's name before killing him. But the flames answer him with a name, Elpam. Terrified, the mage demands to know how that's possible when he was sure he finished him. The protagonist steps out of the smoke and tells him to remember this well, because it's the last name he'll ever hear. His miserable life ends today. The man just laughs, calls him a cockroach and says bluffing won't help if he can't land a hit. Elpam agrees. Hitting him with only 2 circles is almost impossible. The old man is stunned when he notices MC has a mana stone. Then he laughs even harder, calling him crazy because that last hope is just a fantasy. Absorbing a mana stone alone isn't enough to evolve. Someone also needs skill and tons of experience. He lets out a crushing aura and says that part is true. That leaves the man confused, unable to tell if he's serious or joking. Then a 3rd circle starts forming on Elpam's arm, boosting his power. The protagonist says there's nothing to worry about. He already has more than enough of both to evolve. Calling it a filthy trick, the mage raises his staff and fires flame arrows, screaming for him to die. The attacks race toward the badly wounded boy. Even so, he meets them head on, his empty eyes full of resolve. Then he uses the same technique to answer the killing strike. His spell is built so well that it even overpowers the dying mage's attack. But the man refuses to go down, and uses the flame orb to block the fire arrow. Elpam keeps his hand raised and activates the telekinesis ring again. It's the revolver. He spins the flame arrow into a drill that can pierce through anything. The desperate old man's red eyes go wide as death closes in. All he can do is watch the fire spell rush in to end his life. Even then, he keeps spitting out hatred in his final moment. As the spell kills him, he says Elpam's name, the last thing he ever hears. The fire keeps burning through the forest, though it likely won't spread far. MC breathes hard and stares ahead in silence. Then he lets out a sigh as he looks at the charred body of his enemy. He mutters that he forgot to ask the name of the man who nearly killed him at the start of this new life. Sometime later, a massive foot steps down onto the grass. The monsters search the area, while the blonde and the warrior hide behind a tree. She realizes things are getting worse and worse for their side. She remembers how the man was fighting earlier with his axe. He was cutting down dozens with smooth moves and brutal power. Watching that, the knight thought he looked like a monster himself, while tearing through those creatures. With a grin, Disbo said it was easy, since he could read all their movement patterns. One of the Obers rushed him with a heavy punch. Disbo dodged easily, leaping through the trees. Then he jumped onto the orc, calling it number 18 in his kill count from this fight. But a giant fireball suddenly slammed into him, saving the monster. A huge explosion followed, showing just how much power was used to stop the warrior. The one behind it was the monster chief, laughing while the scar over his eye glowed dark red. The blonde sees it and is instantly horrified. It's orbital flame, something a monster should never be able to use. That one detail changes everything, and makes this battle even worse, so she decides to stay hidden until Elpam returns, hoping he's still alive. A creature tries to catch her, but she slips away with sharp, quick movement while carrying the man. The other warriors keep trying to reach her, but she dodges them as exhaustion starts catching up, and her breathing grows heavy. Then one monster steps in front of her and swings an axe to kill her. Seeing it, she grabs her companion's wrist with all her strength. She throws him upward, takes down the monster, then catches him again. She thinks both he and the other one have helped too much to die here, and she still believes she can manage somehow. But suddenly her eyes go wide in fear. A huge fireball lands right in front of her, blocking her path. The leader is behind it, laughing, and she knows she can't beat him. So she runs as another spell comes flying in to burn her alive. It's so fast it nearly singes her hair. A massive explosion follows, showing the attack connected. The orc chief starts laughing. sure he just crushed his biggest threat. But then he notices two figures still standing in the smoke and goes still. One of them is the berserk, now awake and back on his feet. The blonde stares in shock, unable to believe it. At that moment the man seems almost trance-like, then he rushes straight at his enemy with total focus. The leader thrusts out his hand and orders all his soldiers to attack this one human. But Debo is too fast, and tears through them at insane speed. One even tries to catch him off guard to please his master. Debo dodges with a sharp move, hurls his axe and kills him. Seeing that, the leader is shaken and starts to feel real fear. He thrusts his staff forward with a scream, and unleashes another explosion. The blonde can only watch in disbelief. After all, that human is only at the first circle, which should be impossible. Even so, Debo charges on in a wild battle frenzy. His axe shoots toward the creature's core at blinding speed, but the creature makes a desperate move and fires a point-blank fireball. A moment later, the man drops into the blonde's arms. With a broken wrist and jaw, the orc can only grunt in pain. Its whole body shakes, showing how badly this one human scared it. Veins bulge on its forehead as its anger rises. Then it lifts its staff with a scream and forms a fireball overhead. The blonde steps in front, telling Debo to fall back because she'll handle the rest. The green creature attacks with all its hatred, trying to kill them both. But then something appears inside a telekinetic aura. It's Elpham's technique, and it tears right through that powerful spell. The orc mage can only stare, not understanding what he's seeing. Then his eyes widen as the real shot speeds toward him. And just like always, the creature can't survive the hit. The blonde watches in disbelief, wondering what that attack even was. Then we see Elpham there, breathing hard. Right after saying that, he realizes he wasn't as late as he thought. Somewhere else, a tired adventurer lets out a long yawn. He grumbles that it's been 4 days with no sign from inside, and sitting around is making him rusty. Then he looks up. Suddenly, the whole area turns loud. At that moment, the portal's frame starts breaking apart. He yells, asking what in the world is happening. Then the portal shuts down and collapses after that strange reaction. A woman orders someone to call a bishop right away. People actually made it back from the failed raid. The scar-faced man stiffens when he sees what's happened. Out of that nightmare, only 3 people returned. Our protagonist suddenly wakes up, eyes wide. The adventurer notices and says he's finally awake. Then his tone turns serious. Better to be honest now, because it looks like only Gaffer's merchant group made it out. He asks what happened inside the portal, and our protagonist is stunned to learn they were the only survivors. He admits he feared that, but it's still hard to accept that everyone else died. Then he reveals the truth. There was a demon in that cursed place. A moment later, he asks for paper and a pencil so he can draw what he saw. He doesn't know its name, but once he sketches it, the man goes pale. After calming down, the man says everything finally makes sense. Later, inside a cabin, someone shouts that none of this adds up. 100 elite fighters died in a red portal. One man, Toriel, says even his cousin was in there. Another insists the survivors were telling the truth. That monster really was the boss of a 100-man portal. Everyone realizes it was a green ogre, a type that can use items basically like fighting a whole army of adventurers. But a man stroking his mustache says he can't accept that. There's no way the 3 Nadisha sisters would lose to something like that. An adventurer asks what he's trying to imply, and the answer is simple. It looks like sabotage. Someone inside may have sold them out. Once they entered, nobody could know what happened in there, and somehow the only survivors all came from the same group. Habus cuts in, saying his side survived by pure luck. One of his people awakened the 3rd circle and escaped with 2 others. The other man takes that as a jab, and says they're trying to act superior to the other unions. That turns into an angry argument about the rankings of the 10 great unions, with both men laughing through clenched teeth. Watching them, the adventurer wonders if they're done trading insults yet. The man with the mustache asks if they have any proof at all. Then the man with the cigar points out they brought no items back, so there's no reason to think they did anything. Outside, our protagonist bows and thanks them for taking care of him, and the man brushes it off. A woman walks up to her leader and asks if it's really okay to let them leave. The old man replies that they've already reached their conclusion. Time passes, and the wind keeps blowing through the forest. Our boy glances to the side and spots a familiar figure. The blonde is shocked. The little creature actually followed him. It's a tiny, adorable snail staring at them. She asks why he's hesitating when the whole plan is already set. They dealt with the Black Mage's followers, wiped out the orcs, and now all that's left is dumping the items and giving themselves a few injuries. He keeps staring at her with a firm, serious look. Then we see the items he took from that brutal enemy. The plan is simple, but one thing he got is way too valuable to ignore. It's the Phoenix Feather, an item that boosts all his fire attacks, and unlike most items, its effect can stack forever. That one item is why everyone else died, and now that he has it, he can't bring himself to leave it behind. The woman warns that taking it out will make people suspect sabotage, something Elpham already told them. He shouldn't get greedy, and since they found an exit portal, they should stick to the plan. Just then, a tiny flower-like shape comes closer. Both of them notice it and go quiet. It's explained that this is a pet snail. Unlike normal monsters, it can't fight and just wanders around collecting items to grow its shell. In his past life, creatures like this only appeared after portals opened. Now the little thing brings our protagonist exactly what he wanted most. That's how he gets the phoenix feathers, his true goal all along. The blonde is shocked it managed to bring them and asks how he knew to use it, and he says trying something was better than leaving empty-handed. Then she asks what they'll do next, and he tells her not to rush. Now that they've slipped into the Cygnus Nights, they need to gather info carefully. If the enemy senses danger, they'll hide even more. By now, the others have probably gone back, so they'll wait for a while. Somewhere else, a man crushes a paper in his hand. Furious, he says all their allies were wiped out so the raid failed. The woman adds that everyone died to the boss, and people now suspect sabotage tied to Gaeafor. Still, they weren't exposed, which means they can start setting up the next mission. The room grows heavier under that man's presence. Then he asks if they really weren't discovered. She says yes, she made sure of it. The plan was to kill every group, and there was nothing linking it back to Elpam. Even so, the man thinks he may have a reason to stay hidden, and if he noticed anything, he might spread that information. The woman warns that if that happens, they'll be in danger, so they need to kill him fast. Smiling, the man says this is the perfect chance to send an invitation, one the protagonist will likely accept. Still, he says they should prepare something different this time. After all, these may be the first and last guests to ever learn he exists. Then someone speaks about the world before reincarnation, a place that was basically hell. He lived in deep poverty, could only dream of a normal life, and had to watch his brother suffer from black blood disease. In the end, he couldn't even make graves for his family. And in the middle of that nightmare, an angel appeared. She said someone had been left behind. The woman saw he was struggling and asked if he wanted help. That was his first meeting with Eren, and all he could do was tell her to leave. Later, a dog suddenly charges at the group. Debo handles it with ease and boasts that he's taking first place in monster kills. The others tease him, saying today's cleanup was already decided, and he's just trying to look cool with that axe. The woman says the job's done, and since they handled it well, they can head out. To our berserk. That woman looked like light itself. Just 1 year with her changed the way he saw life, and through her, the world started to look brighter. From then on, his goal was to help her. One of the others jokes that the other guy really is great at cleanup. They banter like close friends, while the little girl says they need to keep moving because someone left marks on the roof. Something feels off. The Elmas Mountain area doesn't seem the same anymore. Then we jump further into the past, where someone is desperately asking for help. She says it's too dangerous to enter the abandoned mines alone. No one will go with her, and she needs help finding her brother. The woman starts to refuse, saying she doesn't take requests like that. Bringing along someone from the third circle could just slow them down. There's no proof her brother is even alive, so she should ask another adventurer instead. But the boy suddenly stands, apologizes for cutting in, and explains that after the recent incident, no adventurer will enter the Cave of Challenges. That's why he offers to help, promising to protect her, and asking his master to think again. Soon they reach a battlefield littered with weapons and bodies. The girl says the corpse ahead isn't her brother's, and the woman notes he wasn't killed by ordinary monsters. It looks like the body has been there about a week, and then she recognizes the person as a shadow, moves in. A massive structure suddenly crashes down on the group. They blast it away with a defensive attack, triggering a huge explosion. Holding the little girl in his arms, Debo asks what just happened. Then he looks over and realizes who's there. It's Zakum. He tells the girl to stay behind him, and steps forward. But then a powerful blue slash cuts through the air, and strikes the giant's hand just as it's about to hit his student. The woman orders them to move from the left and target the creature's core. The man agrees, they'll end this fast and keep searching. The rest prepare and charge in with everything they've got. The fight is brutal, and every hit lands with crushing force. While watching, the girl suddenly notices something strange. It's a cave, and from inside comes a dark call. Sometime later, Debo is out of breath and admits this was just as hard as the rumors said. Then the knight suddenly notices Shannon is missing, and asks if anyone has seen her. Right then, they spot her hair ornament on the ground. Debo realizes she went ahead alone and can't understand why. The heroine warns everyone to get ready. She doesn't know what it is, but something inside is giving off a huge aura. She isn't fully sure yet, but that pressure tells her it's dangerous. Debo firmly says he'll bring Shannon back no matter what. He says protecting her is his job, so the others need to guard the entrance, though the knight argues they should follow the heroine's call. Still, the woman says she's going with him either way. Whatever is in there threatens Maple's world, and dealing with it is her duty. With that settled, the two move on while the rest stay behind. Ahead, the cave is filled with lava and dry stone. The farther they go, the hotter it gets. Soon they find the girl sitting beside a strange tree. Debo says this must be the path, then looks forward and calls for Shannon, only to notice a body lying there. The girl touches his head, and then her face, confirming that it really is her brother. Watching this, the heroine narrows her eyes and realizes something is wrong. Debo tells the little girl not to move. He'll go get Shannon and bring her back. But through her tears, the girl starts laughing. She says she knew he'd come because he's kind, but there's no way back now. Zaka, she explains, means demon tree. People think the statues move on their own, but the giant tree is the real core. The statues weren't the true enemy, and Debo asks what she's trying to say. The woman cuts in, thanks her for the warning, and says he needs to stay calm because she'll kill the tree. She adds that the little girl needs to hide, or she'll get caught in the fight. Then Eddie asks if she still plans to keep using her brother as a sacrifice. Holding the orb, the girl says they still don't understand. This is only the beginning, and the moment they entered, the pact was sealed. Zaka can use mediums, not just statues, which makes it even more dangerous. Then she notices her companion has attacked. The woman quickly turns, shocked. A spear fighter is rushing at her, his weapon wrapped in black aura. The blow lands hard, and sends her flying back. Debo demands to know what Miria is doing attacking them. Then he sees her face clearly, and freezes. She says he was the one who killed all her friends. Laughing, the girl says there's nothing they can do now. They're just targets for Miria's revenge. Now it's time for the grand finale. She says the show has to end exactly the way it was planned. After all, this is a gift for her lord, the Black Mage. A moment later, an explosion tears through the area. Dibbo coughs up blood and wonders if Zakam caused that. The heroine snaps at him to stop acting like a child and finish it. This isn't the Miria he knew anymore, but the controlled warrior only smiles like a madwoman. Dibbo says he knows that, but it still isn't easy. The woman boosts herself with adrenaline to hit even harder. Then she slams a crushing strike into one of the giant's limbs to destroy it. But even that powerful hit isn't enough. Dibbo grits his teeth, struggling to think straight. The battle keeps escalating, each blast stronger than the last. He blames himself and admits he never should have suggested coming here. With his axe in hand, he charges forward, screaming in rage. Then he drives his weapon into his friend's chest, thinking this is all his fault. Looking at her, he quietly apologizes. At the same time, the woman rushes in and reaches for the warrior's head to finish it. But Miria is faster. She completes her strike first and kills her own companion. Yet the hand that had come to kill him gently touches his face instead. As she falls, she thanks him and asks him to look after Aaron. Debo's heart pounds as grief hits him all at once. Then the heroine leaps toward her target and swings sideways at the tree, the monster's true body. The impact triggers a huge explosion, but a rocky hand blocks the blow, catching her off guard. Another stone fist comes at her right after. She dodges, and Debo rushes in, saying they're tearing this thing apart. Together they unleash a full-power combo attack. A storm of strikes cracks the massive statue and tears it apart. But Debo is suddenly stopped by another attack. He catches it with his bare hands and says this thing is awful to fight, even now. Then the girl who led them there screams that she offers her life to the Almighty and charges with a dagger. The axe-wielding heroine doesn't let her move another step and cuts her down in one fast strike. She shows no sorrow, only the resolve to kill whatever caused her friends' deaths. Now the only thing left is the giant statue. Debo warns they still can't let their guard down, but suddenly something hits his mind. His axe slips from his hands as he screams, feeling like his brain is splitting apart. The heroine asks what's happening, then realizes it's worse than she thought. Debo begs Aaron to kill him now, before he does something he'll regret. Understanding, she asks her beloved student to forgive her. Debo gives a faint smile as a memory rises up. He thinks maybe this is the best ending, the punishment for the foolish thoughts he once had. Then the shock crashes into his mind all at once. He sees his little sister lying there, completely lifeless. Staring at her, he asks why he's here, and what's going on. When he looks at his master, he doesn't recognize her, and asks if she did this. She tells him not to worry, she'll end this as fast as she can. But lost to madness, he swears he'll make her pay for dragging his sister into this. She barely dodges a surprise attack from the statue. At the same time, Debo's axe swings at her, covered in dark energy. She ducks under it, then notices something coming from below. It's a kick that catches her off guard, though she blocks it with one hand. Even then, she admits her students' instincts are as sharp as she trained them to be. The two launch into a fierce duel, their weapons clashing again and again. She goes for another slash, thinking this may be her last chance. The strike severs the giant creature's hand as it tries to protect its only cocoon. In the next instant, she appears behind her student, with her weapon charged. Debo looks back, his heart hammering. This is her strongest move. Last play. Debo drops to the side, unable to stand back up. The woman launches through the air at incredible speed and rushes straight at the towering beast ahead. As she strikes, she says they'll end this now and save her boy. Her weapon takes the form of a giant bear, the final devastating blow. But from the top of the statue, Tiembo is ready to jump. He lunges at his master, trying to kill her before she can finish the monster. She clenches her teeth. This is her only chance, and she can't stop even if he gets caught in it. Quickly, she apologizes to Debo and releases the attack. The strike shatters the tree completely, wiping it out before it can resist. Lying on the ground, the berserk asks what happened. As Zakam finally falls, the woman smiles brightly and says he finally came back to her. That's a relief. because she thought she'd have to leave without saying goodbye to him. Debo stares in shock and recognizes Eren as the woman who was fighting him. Trembling, he says she should have killed him and asks why she didn't. Eren tells him they already failed 800 years ago, and now he's the one who must defeat the Black Mage, because his talent is unbelievable. Debo still can't believe it and says he'll never become as strong as his master, no matter how much time he gets. But all she can do now is leave the world she loved in her dear Berserk's hands. She's sure he'll do well in the great battle that's coming. After all, he is her only student, the boy she loved most in this life. And with that, Eren closes her eyes forever. Debo later has to tell the other heroes what happened, but a world without his master means nothing to him. It becomes a living hell where he failed to protect the purpose of his life and couldn't even answer the people he cared about. In the end, this world was never meant to let Debo be happy, and when death came for him, he felt nothing. His heart had been gone for a long time. That blast proved this place was even worse than the hell he was born into. Then he suddenly wakes up, opening his eyes calmly. He realizes he's in bed, hearing voices nearby. His sister is shocked to see him up already. He had passed out without a scratch, so she asks if he had a nightmare. Dandai says he doesn't remember anything. Then someone knocks, and his sister tells him a visitor is here. She calls him out, and Debo heads to the door. There, he meets his boss, who says their schedule got pushed up, so they need to get ready to leave. There's no time to rest, they're being hunted. Then he asks to borrow some money, and the man immediately tries to turn him down. At the Gaffer Mercantile Union office, a man asks if the boy really escaped just by gaining one more circle. The answer is yes. That starts getting on his nerves, and he wonders what this kid is really planning. So he presses for more details, saying useless info gets no reward, and it looks like the boy needs cash. But the boy says the failure was his mistake, and he'll handle it himself. He adds that this will settle every debt he owes. It's 2 million in cash, enough to pay it all back, and leave the man stunned. The man asks if he's trying to sell the information somewhere else for more money. Since he's a free adventurer, maybe he wants to sign again. So he asks what kind of signing bonus he wants to come back. The answer, 15 million. Avis is stunned. To him, that's insane for a rank C adventurer, and no one would pay it. The boy rises without a hint of worry, and says the talk is over, if they're not serious about negotiating. As they walk away, Debo asks how it went. He's told the deal died the moment they heard the 15 million bonus. Debo says his boss has to be out of his mind for asking that much, but the reply comes easy, that amount is nothing. Then Debo asks why they came here, since he knows this place. It used to be his old home in the slums, and compared to where he lives now, this place is hell. People say this area was once the brightest part of the city. Now it's just a nest of bandits. It may be the worst place to live on all of Victoria Island. A man suddenly comes flying through the air after taking a hit, and crashes near the protagonist and Debo. A group of armed men closes in, putting them in a bad spot. Until that moment, the man on the ground thought everything was going fine. Debo says this is where the trouble starts, so they should turn back. This area is every bit as dangerous as he remembers. But the newcomer calls them his brothers and says they're late. He claims these fine gentlemen called him a bandit and beat him up. Tearing up, he begs them to protect him, and Debo is annoyed enough to think the old man has lost his mind. One of the men says they really do look alike, which only makes Debo more irritated. The fat thug points a knife at them and says the old man stole something, sold it, and now owes 3 million to make this disappear. With a nasty grin, the scarred one says nobody saw any theft, so he's obviously innocent, and they should all leave. The old man snaps back, saying that talk is just begging for death. Before it can go further, the protagonist throws 3 million right into the bald man's face, and clears the debt. Then he says it's settled, so they can go. Debo is left staring, asking why he paid. The boy turns back with a hard look and calls out to Ralph, telling him to follow. Ralph asks if they really came here to recruit him, and what about the money? The answer, they already tossed that guy an all earlier. The old man says that's not his problem, so he has no reason to join. Debo fires back, that they still need to recover the 3 million they just paid. Smirking, the old man says he never asked them to do that in the first place. Then he says, if they came looking for him they already know what he can do, so they should pay properly. He wants at least 3 million to join them. Just then a woman walks up and asks if she may interrupt. She introduces herself as Beiju from the Kamiya Mercantile Union, and asks for Elpam. MC watches her carefully, his expression turning serious. Ralph quickly realizes she's from one of the major unions, and he confirms with a small smile that she's found the right person. Beiju says it's a pleasure to meet him. His showing in the 100-man portal impressed them, so she'll get right to the point. They want to recruit him. There will be a simple test, but they'll pay 3 million up front, and another 15 million to sign if he passes. Hearing that, the old man can't believe anyone would offer this kid that much money. Beiju asks if he'll accept, and Elpam smiles, pleased that everything is going as planned. She leaves after saying the raid is in 3 days and wishing him luck, which gets Debo excited too. The protagonist tosses the money to the old man, and tells him to pick it up. That's the bonus he asked for. The contract lasts a year, and if the raid succeeds, he'll get another 7 million, leaving Debo even more confused. The two start bickering, while Elpam ignores Debo's complaints. After a while, Debo can only stare in disbelief at what he sees next, because the blonde girl from the last portal is now with them. He asks why that loud girl is here, and she's told she only came to keep her promise. Sometime later, a boot splashes into a rain puddle. It's Elpam's group, and they say it's a perfect day to raid a portal. There are 5 teams here, 50 people total, and that should be enough to clear the gate. One man complains that with this many people, his share of the money will shrink. A woman steps forward, introduces herself, and explains that this portal is orange rank. It's already at max capacity and marked with 3 seals, but she believes clearing it won't be a problem. Elpam realizes the followers are involved. He didn't expect the Mercantile Union to contact him so soon, which means they've already started using this place for something. Even if the timing is different, this portal was cleared once before, so the plan stays the same. They just need to fire a flare if they find a second portal, which confuses Debo. He's told that means a dungeon hidden inside the limited area, one that has another exit once you enter it. The old man mutters that the berserk is unbelievably dumb, then calls over Elpam. He reminds him that hiring someone doesn't make them the leader. That spot goes to the most capable one. MC smiles and says he's greedy too, so they'll decide the boss by who contributes the most in this raid. The old man perks up, thinking this rookie really took the bait. If he can come out on top here, things are going to get very interesting. A few minutes later, the raid begins, and Debo says they can clear this place and make over 50 million. The old man calls him a useless first circle kid for acting like this will be easy. Annoyed, Debo tells him to prove it in a fight, but the old man says the result is obvious, so there's no point. Debo keeps raging that this idiot is wrecking the team's morale. Then something grabs his attention. The moment they pass through the portal, they find a nightmare. Giant monsters called Evil Eyes are already attacking everyone. One frog-like beast leaps onto Debo and drags him across the ground. He shouts, asking what this thing is and why it's waiting right at the entrance. The monster swings a claw to finish him off and tear into his flesh, but the old man rushes in and kicks it away, saving him. The hit is strong enough to launch the beast all the way into a nearby tree. He tells Debo to watch his targets, while the blonde wonders if the portal really opened in the middle of the monster's territory. Meanwhile, the creatures keep charging at the group like they're starving for blood. Then a flame forms near the portal, something very familiar. Elpam cuts them down with a fire arrow, thinking these monsters weren't here the last time, which makes no sense. The woman leaps onto one of the beasts and uses Rising Sun, but it dodges by throwing itself aside, catching her off guard. She tries again, and the same thing happens, the monster still grinning in a cruel way. Its movements are so strange that even a seasoned fighter like her can't read them. A direct hit slams into her chest and sends her flying. Several more rush her fallen body, ready to tear her apart. All she feels is anger and frustration, as death closes in. Then, everything changes. Every monster around her is killed at once. Elsewhere, Debo is still struggling against another creature, when he fails to notice someone racing toward him. That figure strikes the monster, pinning him down and kills it instantly. The force is so overwhelming that it slams the frog into a nearby tree. The old man says the boy has 2 kills, while the lady he had to cover only has 1. To him, this just keeps getting better, especially since he's already getting paid. The blonde sees how scary those real abilities are, and even if she hates to admit it, says the third circle really is on another level. A beast soon lunges at the old man, drooling as it tries to eat him. He drops it right away with a quick string of punches. He even slips past its wild attacks, saying they move all over the place. But that's not enough. The 2 kids are safe under his protection, but our protagonist is a different story. He guides his fire arrow with telekinesis, proving how skilled he is, and his kill speed is way higher than the old man's. Then, facing Elpam makes him remember something. So he rushes another monster, but it dodges with crazy speed. Ralph was ready for that. He steps in with his fist and says the boy is definitely useful to him. After all, a 50 million contract fee isn't normal, and if a merchants union is involved, the next payout could be even bigger. His eyes light up when he sees a sight he loves. This is the road to taking over the group, and sitting on a mountain of money. He starts laughing, and the blonde can't believe he's actually enjoying all this. The fighter gets even more fired up, saying he's thrilled, and after losing so many of their own, even the beasts start fearing him. But something suddenly smashes into him from the side, stopping him from finishing the frog. It was our protagonist, kicking him hard enough to make him ask what that was about. Bracing himself on the ground, he complains about the cheap shot, and asks if the boy wants to fight. The boy says there's no need to thank him, leaving the man even more confused. Then the place where he had been standing gets blasted by a huge area attack that wipes out the monsters there. The fighter asks what that was, because it didn't come from any of the groups attacking them. Meanwhile, the frogs start closing in, trapping the members of the large raid. At that same moment, a spectral arrow is drawn. The one behind it is a mysterious archer getting ready to kill them. Our boy spots a glow above the trees and wonders if that's where the attack is coming from. The frogs then rush him with savage hunger, but the arrows fired his way make it clear the target is the humans, not the beasts. In all the chaos, the boy vanishes among the monster corpses. The archer is startled, and notices something odd. It's our protagonist, popping out from behind one of the dead creatures. The young man sees the archer is already casting another spell to strike him. Then he glances aside, and spots something alarming. The arrow has already been fired and is flying straight at him. A huge blast erupts through the forest. Watching it, the old man realizes the boy blocked the attack with one of the beasts and even countered right away, a completely insane move. While fighting off another creature, the warrior warns his boss to be careful. The boy looks over, wondering what's coming. A bunch of projectiles are already racing at his back. Then an explosion goes off, and everyone fears the boy didn't make it, but he only ends up with a small cut on his arm. The old man is sure he got hit, yet the boy suddenly shows up behind them almost untouched. The blonde yells to Elpam that they need to retreat. This place is far too dangerous. Still staring upward in shock, the fighter asks how this is even possible. The whole battlefield is under non-stop fire from above, leaving no escape route. More attacks rain down and the other groups panic, shouting for everyone to run. But the shots are so fast they pierce the speaker before he can finish. The others feel the wounds spread through them, and the pain only gets worse. The knight swings her sword and makes a bold move. With a solar slash, she protects one of the people on the ground. She yells that they need to run into the forest if they want to live. They would have already done that, but the creatures are blocking the way. Then a strange fire shot tears through the field and wipes out the beasts. It opens a path through the chaos, so they can escape. Our protagonist made that opening, and the older fighter says he'll move first and handle it. The knight pushes him to quit wasting time and run faster. They press ahead, their steps growing steadier as they head for the exit. But the attacks from above keep coming, trying to finish them off. The warrior calls to his boss, warning that they'll all die if this keeps up. Our protagonist quickly fires a blast to launch himself backward. As the explosion goes off, Elpam says he has a plan, and tells his companion to listen carefully. The archer notices, and realizes the boy found him almost at once, which surprises him. Now he understands why Lord Evoke was worried about this young man. While watching him, he quietly apologizes to him because he's about to kill him. Several arrows fly out, but the boy is fast enough to leap through the trees and dodge as he moves. The archer wonders why he's so fast, and then he notices something else. There are only 6 people now. The one with the halberd is missing. Then a huge fireball comes flying straight at him. He whips his head around and sees the terrifying sight behind him. The attacker used the bracelet's power to blow up the tree. It was our protagonist, and he saw the hit land for himself. Then Daibo, dressed in the boy's clothes, says it worked out pretty well. Their disguise swap plan succeeded, and he acts like it's all thanks to his greatness. But while bragging that he bought them plenty of time, an arrow suddenly pierces his stomach. The knight sees it happen, and screams as he starts to fall. Our protagonist is shocked too, and turns that way at once. He quickly sees an energized arrow flying straight at him next. The others start getting hit too, and someone nearby cries out that it's impossible. As she screams for help, arrows rip through all of them. Holding her partner, the blonde tells everyone to run as fast as they can. But a light shot pierces her thigh. Unable to stand, she falls forward with her injured companion. More glowing attacks rush at them to finish the job, and the wounded woman can only grit her teeth in pain. Then someone appears, catches them and tells them to stay focused. Ralph ends up playing dad to kids he doesn't even have, and it's giving him a huge headache. He keeps running at full speed while the archer says they still can't escape his range, so he knocks 3 more arrows for a multi-shot. Then something makes him pause, and doubt shows in his eyes. The fighter asks why they're heading this way, and the answer is simple. It was his boss's order. At last, all 3 make it through the forest. It took everything they had, but what they find ahead only confuses them more. A second portal has appeared there, something that should be impossible, and they realize Elpam knew where it was the whole time. Smiling, Ralph says they're only alive because of him, and the enemies are too far away for the arrows to reach now. Debo starts saying they can't go through without the boss, but Ralph reminds him this was the protagonist's plan from the start, to save them. While he says that, he doesn't notice several shots coming from in front of them. The attacks slam into all of them at once with brutal force. The warrior drops to the ground, losing the mage's staff he was carrying. Ralph can't believe it. The enemy got ahead of them far faster than he expected. Then a giant tree trunk, along with the warrior's axe, crashes into them. The impact sends them flying into the portal with tremendous force. All of them vanish into the orange light pouring from it. After that, the forest stays silent for a long moment. The archer, still confused, wonders how the protagonist could be crazy enough to do that. A few minutes later, something starts moving in the quiet woods. An arrow shoots through an evil eye and kills it in one hit. Its body drops as its final groan fades. The archer realizes he's been baited again. The protagonist isn't moving around, which means he's hiding and searching. Still, he calls it a stupid move, and decides to play along, wondering how long the boy can last. Back when he was 13, Lord Avok accepted him, after a trial with 300 assassins. That slaughter lasted 7 days, and no one found him. so he earned the title Spectre. His eyes widen, and he turns after sensing movement nearby. He fires at once and kills another passing creature with a single arrow. Missing again only makes his irritation more obvious. Then a fire arrow slams into a tree right beside him. As he jumps from branch to branch, he admits the protagonist isn't bad at all. Still, he stops again after changing position. He admits he should have known that attack would give away his spot too. But when his shot lands, he realizes nothing was there, and that catches him off guard. Then a fire arrow suddenly appears beside him, making him flinch. That bastard used telekinesis to throw him off, and he can't help calling it a cheap move. The archer crashes hard onto the ground. He stomps hard and escapes at once. 2 fire arrows twist through the trees toward the movement. To avoid dying, the assassin quickly readies 3 arrows. He fires, and the clash with the flames causes an explosion. But the blast ruins his vision, forcing him to shield his eyes with his arm. Then another spell comes straight at him from behind. At point-blank range, he fires to hit the arrow itself. The sudden burst of energy makes the force bounce back. The assassin drops with a groan, writhing in pain. As he gets back up, one name keeps coming to mind: Elpham. This is turning into the hardest fight of his life, as an assassin, and somehow, that only makes it more fun. He lets out a breath, and his eyes turn white. A faint wind moves through the forest, and everything goes still. Elpham listens carefully, thinking it's gotten too quiet. Hiding this long is annoying enough, but masking his presence that well is even worse. He never faced anyone like this in his past life, so this has to be an assassin Kanya sent after noticing him during the 100-man portal. Suddenly, a shout calls for MC to come out, and he turns when he hears it from a strange direction. The man mocks him, saying to stop wasting time. Hiding like a rat isn't honorable. Laughing, he says it's better to settle this face to face. Elpham can't figure out how he got there without showing his presence, so he suspects teleportation. But as he moves closer, he starts thinking it was the so-called step of the wind. Then the archer declares that he's finally found him. A storm of projectiles flies at him. The scene then cuts to a snowy mountain. The orange portal lights up as people come through. A second later, they all hit the ground screaming. Thibaut says they left their boss behind, but the others insist there was nothing else they could do. The warrior worries about how he'll manage alone, and someone answers that Elpham probably has a plan. Then he notices the countless bodies around them. He's confused. This should be a 3-marked portal, so why are there thousands of corpses here? The blonde finally gets it. This was a huge trap. Everything before this felt suspicious, and now it's clear Kaniad serves the Dark Mage. They must have been dragging adventurers here the whole time, and Elpham was right to say they took the bait. Ralph quickly cuts in, saying there's something more important right now. The owner of this place doesn't look happy about the intruders. A massive snow gorilla appears, its arms packed with power. The knight asks if that's really the boss they have to fight here. The older man says it's time to repay his debt, and that they should count themselves lucky. According to him, what they're about to see isn't something most people ever witness. If you had to sum up Ralph in one line, you'd call him awful to deal with. He's greedy, arrogant, and the type who'll do anything if money is involved. But as an adventurer, Ralph is a different story. He's incredibly useful because his skills are top class. He's probably the only healing bishop at the peak of the 3rd circle. The moment he uses his skill, both fighters feel warm life energy spread through them. His wounds start closing fast, almost like magic in motion. So his real class was never fighter, it was healing bishop, which means all that power he showed earlier may have just been raw strength. Ralph grins and tells them to get ready. They need to make their pay worth it. After all, the creature in front of them isn't going to wait. Everyone rushes in as the Yeti charges too. It slams the ground, sending huge chunks of rock flying everywhere. Thibaut grits his teeth, calling the beast insanely annoying. Then the monster lunges at him with its jaws wide open. But when it bites down, it doesn't catch any flesh. Thibaut is holding one of its fangs, catching the beast by surprise. He swings his axe into its eye, and the creature roars in pain. At the same time, the knight uses Solar Slash, leaving a wound that won't heal. A huge hand then swings toward Thibaut to stop him. Something crashes into it like a meteor, shocking the warrior. It's the bishop, who then leaps back to make space. With a Bible in hand, he casts a blessing. The knight feels her strength steadily rising. Then the healer casually says each skill cost 100,000, instantly annoying both of them. The giant beast spits out blue fluid. Tired out, the blonde tells Ralph she's done, and he says he'll pay for her help. Then he notices the monster is still conscious. Meanwhile, Elpham keeps fighting the specter, but something feels off. He still can't tell where the shots are coming from. The specter is using Aljavage flow like a teleport skill. He even mocks the protagonist for being too slow. Elpham throws more fire, but the specter warns that if he keeps this up, mana shock will hit him. Blood drips from MC's mouth, yet he still fires again. His enemy keeps mocking him, saying he has no chance. But Elpham drinks a blue potion and manages to release an even stronger flame. The specter is stunned that Elpham is using a spell above a 3-circle mage's level and doing it while suffering mana shock. Then he realizes he is ready to burn himself out. The protagonist uses his skill to box the specter in, The masked assassin decides Elpam has gone insane because he's throwing fire everywhere. MC is nearly spent and keeps telling himself to hold on. The Spectre calls him an idiot, saying he'll never land a hit and that mana shock will seal his fate. Even with his body failing and blood spilling from his mouth, Elpam still refuses to stop fighting. He sends a fire orb at the Spectre, and the assassin decides to run before it burns him. He spots an open area and heads there, but quickly sees it was a trap. Elpam surrounds him and starts hammering him with punches. The Spectre tries to guard against the attacks. At the same time, he knows he can't last much longer and has to finish this now. But the Spectre lands a heavy hit. At that moment, Elpam forces himself back up and realizes he no longer has the mana for attack spells, so he decides to end it once and for all. A dagger appears under a blue glow, and the Spectre realizes Elpam is using telekinesis, since it barely costs mana. The Spectre lunges, but the protagonist blocks with his staff. Then the assassin recovers and swings his sword, nearly taking off Elpam's arm. Even so, MC heals himself and keeps defending, almost landing a hit. The Spectre endures it, uses another skill, and tells Elpam to stop before this goes too far. He loses consciousness, and the Spectre walks over, saying he'll help him and that they still need the Phoenix Feather. But the protagonist suddenly wakes with blue light blazing from his eyes and instantly rips the Spectre's head off. After that, he mutters that he's sick of bow users. Back at the monster fight, the beast hurls one of them far away. The other fighter holds on against the snow. One plans to circle behind it, while the other looks for a weak spot. The snow monster catches on to their plan, and they realize it isn't just some dumb brute. One of them uses a healing spell but says it's almost gone, telling the blonde to keep dodging. The other searches for an opening and tells them to spread out. The woman collapses, and the younger fighter is badly hurt. Lying there wounded, the boy remembers a lesson about improving his skill. It's the circular technique, and with it he can move in different directions, mostly forward in time. But to strengthen it, he needs a key, either a deep understanding of mana, or a memory he can never forget. After remembering that, he rises and cuts into the monster. The older man is shocked by the boy's power, and wonders how someone so young can be this strong, but the monster endures and keeps attacking. The boy shields the healer, and the older man tells him not to worry about him. Then the boy finishes by wounding the beast again. With hammer in hand, the boy strikes the monster, but it still won't go down. He turns toward Ralph and asks what's going on. Soon the creature changes into a giant mass of ice and breaks apart. Later, while they recover, one of them wakes and asks if everyone died. The boy says he killed the monster, used its hide as blankets, and even tried eating the meat. The other guy calls him brave for that, and asks if he stayed waiting for them. He says he had no choice, there's no way out of the portal. He adds that maybe they should rest a bit longer. The boy tells him to keep resting, and walks out of the cave. As soon as he steps outside, he runs into another monster, and quickly takes it down. When he gets back to the cave, the blonde says he returned fast. He tells her there were some creatures outside, and she says next time she's coming with him. The boy turns that down, saying they should go out one at a time, and tells her to keep resting since Ralph still needs help recovering. After that, the player lies back down, while she thinks the boy is always trying to act cool. That night, the young man slips out of the cave, and runs into several more creatures. He beats them all but admits he really thought he might get hurt this time. Then he notices a man frozen in place, clutching a letter. The boy walks over, takes the letter and reads it. It says all of the man's companions were injured by the snow monster, and if someone is reading this, then the creature must have been beaten. The letter adds that a portal out of this dimension is nearby, and asks whoever finds it to deliver the letter to his home. The young man then takes the man's gloves and sword. Soon he leaves with the girl and the injured player toward the portal, but when they go through it, masked men are waiting for them. The young man warns the injured player that this is bad, he can't fight right now. Kiri steps in and battles the masked men. Then an orange beam flashes out and wipes them out. Elpam walks up and says they're late, then tells them to grab some sodas and rest. Elsewhere, a blue wolf and a dark mage sit in a room. As the long-haired man pets the wolf, he says a very skilled person appeared out of nowhere, and no one knows who he is. A follower announces Elpam's arrival to the mage, and asks what to do about the contract. The man orders them to kill MC. The follower can't understand why. The man says he doesn't care about public opinion, they'll make an excuse later. The follower reminds him he isn't alone. Meanwhile, back at the hideout, the group is resting, and one player complains the food has no taste. Another snaps at him for insulting his sister's cooking, and Kiri thanks the brown-haired woman. The boy says he never wanted to bring them along, but the blonde points out that Kenya already knows everything, so it's safer to stay together. Elpam arrives and asks if everyone's alright. When someone asks where he's been, he says he was taking care of some business. Ralph then asks how they'll split the reward. The young man blurts out that he really wants to go to Kenya and demand money. That kicks off an argument about who did more in the fight and who did less, until someone knocks at the door. A large man outside asks for Elpam. Earlier, the protagonist had gone to the eye patch man's office to ask for the reward. They got into an argument, and Elpam blamed Kenya, He said the test portal was a trap, and that masked men had been sent after them. The eye patch man was furious, and said he'd bring Kenya down. MC asked if his testimony alone would really be enough. The man said he could sway public opinion and ruin Kenya's name, though they might strike back. So in his view, Kenya had to be crushed completely. Later, the man went to Kenya and apologized, claiming it was all a misunderstanding between him and the merchant union. He added that he had acted rashly because he's still young. He also said the boy was an official business partner of Garfor, and regretted that it looked like someone had been stealing from them. The woman answered that she couldn't pay the promised contract fee, and he said that was fine. Then he said the incident made him realize how valuable human life is, and now he wanted to treat people properly. She asked what he meant, and the man smiled coldly. He said he had skilled guards ready, and that protection would cover Elpam's group too, since they were a strong team. He added that if anyone tried to attack the protagonist and his people, they'd also be taking on the Garfor merchant union. Back at the hideout, the group is stunned by how big the reward is. Then they ask if the guards outside are from the Garfor merchant union, and they're to protect them. Ralph starts bragging that he was useful to the team, then praises Elpam and everyone else, especially the young player. He says the boy is crazy strong, and wonders how someone that young got such powerful skills. The boy says he keeps dreaming about a woman, and sometimes they fight together like they've known each other forever. When he wakes up, he remembers she was using a certain skill. Elpam is shocked by the boy's dream, and thinks back to how everyone knew before his regression that Daibo and Oren were together. If the woman in the dream is Oren, then maybe some of his old power returns while he's asleep. That makes him wonder if changing the past before his regression caused something to go wrong. Ralph keeps going, saying he can't understand how both boys improved their magic circles so fast at their age. Then he turns to the blonde and says there's nothing special about her, so maybe she should go back to Signa. Earlier that day, Kiri had gone to the center. A boy there said he was surprised she made it out of the portal alive. He asked if she was meeting the master, and she said yes. The young man told her she'd lowered herself by siding with the explorers and said she should resign. Inside the master's room, he asked if she really wanted to be dismissed, and why she had joined that infamous group. Kiri said she couldn't explain yet. The master then said he'd report to the superiors that she joined the explorers as part of a secret mission, but she'd need to send a report every 3 weeks. He ended by telling her she was still his disciple, and an eternal knight of the Signa Knights. Back in the present, Kiri tells Ralph she won't leave the group, and she can grow stronger too. Elpam cuts in and tells Ralph to stop judging everyone else's strength. After all, he was the one MC sent to clean the second floor, and if not for Dimabo, they'd all be dead. Ralph argues that enemy wasn't normal. He fires back, asking if the snow yeti was normal, then says he once hunted a yeti by himself. That leaves everyone stunned. Elpam thinks to himself that happened before his regression, and if Kenya's assassins weren't so strong he could have handled everything alone. Ralph calls him a liar, and asks how someone who was a slave until recently could have that much power. The protagonist tells Ralph he can prove it if needed, but Ralph quickly backs off and says that's not necessary. Elpam then tells everyone they need to get stronger before the next raid, and says the answer is violence. Elsewhere, the Dark Mage asks 2 disciples how much Gaffer knows about the deal being rigged from the start. They say they aren't sure, maybe only the executives know. The mage says killing Gaffer would be easy, but the real enemy is the Maple Association. He explains it was the same 8 centuries ago. Under Empress Signa, the Sigmund Knights, the Explorer Association's resistance, and the Nova tribe formed an alliance. After the 6 heroes were sealed, that alliance became their only real threat. Still, if this were only a fight with the Merchant Union, they wouldn't need the superior's help. He ends by saying he hopes Elpam will be a worthy enemy. Later, in the forest, the group trains to improve their strength and sharpen their skills for the fight against the mage. After training, they return to the lodge. Ralph, covered in bruises, asks if that was really training. He says it felt personal, but Elpam answers that he only adjusted the session. The young boy laughs and sarcastically says, "Ralph looks handsome." A brown-haired girl comes in, and Ralph asks if it was really okay to leave her alone. Then he shrugs and says she's probably fine with guards around the lodge. The young boy remembers the frozen man's letter and shows it to MC, saying that Relic helped him escape. He says he needs to return it, but doesn't know where, and asks if MC does. He stares at the letter in shock and says, "Ring of Cross." The boy looks at the ring and asks what it is, and Elpam says he thinks he knows. He adds that he'll return it himself. Then he says the boy is joining training early tomorrow too, and Ralph laughs at the kid's reaction. Meanwhile, Kiri keeps training in the forest, and remembers how people used to say she had no talent. At the same time, Elpam goes to a house, and the person at the door asks who he is. He says he's the mailman, and holds up the letter. Sometime earlier, there had been an incident at the portal entrance, and it was destroyed. A union member investigated, but the people behind it were never found. Then the portal suddenly reappeared in the same place, and after that, no portal was ever destroyed again. He looks at the hooded person, and she asks how he found this place. Elpam thinks about the Cross Hunters, a secret group that knew the portal was a trap set by the followers. They destroyed it, making a noble sacrifice no one ever noticed. Then the protagonist says he came to return the ring, and adds that he doubts they're in the mood to reward him. The assassins aim a weapon at Elpam, but he starts warning them that if they hurt him, they'll never learn where their leader will be exposed. One of them demands to know who he is. He answers calmly, "Nice to meet you, Cheryl." MC remembers knowing her in his past life after she joined the resistance, when the Cross Hunters were disbanded. They fought side by side in countless battles, until one day she gave her life for him, and he still plans to repay that debt. Then Elpam gets straight to the point, and tells them to abandon the branch in Cunning, because the followers have already exposed its location. He goes on to say he recently got something. He opens the box and reveals a severed hand, saying the Kenya Merchant Union had something worth seeing. Cheryl asks what he means. Instead of answering right away, he tells her to look closer and shows her the hand. She spots a tattoo on it, and says it belongs to a follower. She adds that this mark only shows up when mana is poured into the skin. Then she looks back at him and asks what he wants. Elpam says he wants information. One of the men asks Cheryl if she actually trusts him, but she says no. He's way too suspicious. He thinks to himself that Kenya is shifting its plans fast because the future has changed, and for a moment he considers leaving Kenya's group alone. But then he makes up his mind. Their next stop will be Nautilus. Seagulls cry overhead. Elpam watches people board the ship. After a whole month, he's finally ready for some action again. A man with an eye patch demands a decision. He says they only gathered portals that would matter to Kenya. More than a month has passed, and now it's time to start. Elpam thinks it over before giving his answer. He says he's not sure about the offer. Mr. Abbas is stunned, and assumes the boy is scared. But the boy says he's already decided. He's going to the Eagle Eye Tomb. The man is shocked that he'd choose that place. Captain Karen of the Nautilus had a disciple named Lee Eagle Eye. The Eagle Eye portal is where she died, and a memorial was built there for her. The reward is huge because so many adventurers have failed there, so Mr. Abbas figures Kenya wants that portal. Elpam disagrees, and asks where he heard that. Before anyone answers, a scar-faced man appears at the door, clearly interested. It was Mr. Rakan, and he came bearing a gift. His eyes light up as he shows what he brought. They were 2 phoenix feathers, made by Ghafor. With a smile, the scarred man wishes them luck. Elpam figures this is Rakan's way of saying he'd better get a good return on his investment. The group is still waiting on a few more people. Then a loud drunken shout rings out, and the protagonist hears it. A man shows up carrying a huge sack. Abiru brought the items the boss asked for. The new outfits are light, and everyone likes them. Abiru says they're made from snow Yiddish leather, and the boss left them for the group to wear. Elpam is already dressed in one. The man says he heard they cleared a portal with hundreds of people, and offers one extra outfit. MC decides to give the spare one to Ibiru, but Ibiru says it would be useless for him. Then he rushes everyone, saying they don't have time to waste. Someone yells about how bored he is. A submarine waits out on the water. The men step onto the sand and notice the shadow of a woman. It was Miss Minru, who'd been working non-stop lately. Someone shouts that she pulled it off. Minru had cleared the 200-person orange-ranked portal and returned. The captain drops her pirate hat on the table and answers someone who still can't believe it. Minru tries to persuade her to let her take a 74-person portal, saying it should be easy. She insists she's stronger now than Eagle Eye was back then. Karen doesn't like hearing that, but Minru wants revenge for Leon. The captain throws her out without hesitating. Minru starts crying after that answer. Later, with her head down on the table, she vents about how they should just ignore it and tear down the wanted posters. A man laughs and says that just proves Karen loved her, but Minru thinks she's being overprotective. Suddenly, fast footsteps rush in. A man bursts through the door and calls for Minru. There's a problem. Someone took down the wanted posters at Eagle Eye's tomb. 2 people notice the group arriving, and guess they're from the mainland. The group moves in carefully. Elpam feels uneasy the moment they arrive. The blonde woman warns that this area belongs to dangerous people, so they need to stay quiet if they don't want trouble. Under Nautilus rules, whoever removes the wanted posters gets first claim on the portal raid. But this poster belonged to a group that had special rights over the portal. Then Minru comes running in, furious. She shouts that the poster they removed was hers. Elpam asks why she didn't take it down herself, and she says she still didn't have permission. She needed approval, because Captain Karen was her mentor. Minru calls them idiots, and says the posters on that ship were meant for pirates. Anyone who wasn't a pirate had no right to touch them in any Nautilus portal. A man spits something out, and laughs at the whole mess. He flat out refuses to give the poster back. Then the group introduces itself as the Pirates of Ibiru. From the back, Ibiru steps forward, laughing like this is all hilarious. Minru snaps that they can't call themselves pirates if they aren't really pirates. The boy acts offended, saying he won't be compared to some fake pirate. He asks if she seriously doesn't know Captain Ibiru of the Pirates of Ibiru. Then he argues that if a pirate leads the group, that makes all of them pirates too. Minru is glad someone else joined in. It was Mr. Prolinso was Mr. Prolinchu. It was Mr. Prolinchu. Paltspalsiniting dots, Aslio y. Marath. Curious about all the noise, Elpam doesn't recognize the name, but he answers that his group hasn't broken any rules. Murath says Karen should decide, since she was the one who put up the posters. He replies that his whole team is present, all 5 of them. Murath asks for the boy's name, but someone above recognizes him first. The man says the boy survived the 100-person red-ranked portal. That makes the others wonder if this group is something special, since almost nobody ever came back from there. Still, that alone proves nothing. A woman says they'll fail this raid anyway, so they're just cowards. Someone else points out that Miss Minru cleared a 200-person portal, making her the impressive one. Now Muruth starts to understand who Elpam is. He tries to make a deal. The protagonist's group keeps priority, but they should give up the other 69 spots to another team. MC accepts. He offers 100,000 mesos per person, up to 10 people. Back in her room, Minru thinks over the offer. She starts setting money aside just in case. Her plan is to do what she wants first, then beg Captain Karen to forgive her later. Angry, she swears she won't let anyone else take that portal. Meanwhile, a man explodes over the deal. He can't accept that only 10 of the 69 spots were opened. 690,000 mesos just vanished. Nobody wants to go back now, saying the followers changed their minds. Elpam thinks there's no point taking back what was already said. Their real goal is to kill Minru, Captain Karen's second disciple, inside Eagle Eye, where the first disciple died. After losing a second disciple in that same portal, Karen would break down and shut everyone out. The followers would use that to wipe out all the pirates of Nautilus. That was supposed to happen 2 years later. But now everything has changed. Mania is already moving money through Nautilus, which means the plan is moving faster, and he has to stay ahead. He can't make the same mistake again, and he needs to use less mana. Minru can only think about all the money that was lost. Night comes, then someone knocks on the door. Elpam gets ready to defend himself. He asks who's there, and is stunned when he sees them. He quickly invites them inside. It was Captain Karen and Murath. Elpam asks why they're in his room, and Karen tells him to answer honestly. She stares him down and asks if he's one of the Dark Mage's followers. He's shocked, not just by the question, but by the fact that she knows about them. Murath catches that reaction and asks if there really is a link. Elpam quickly denies it. Karen doesn't buy it, and asks for proof, but he has none. So he says he thought she already knew about his connection to the followers, otherwise she would have shot him long ago instead of coming here. That makes her wonder if he's tied to the Cross Hunters. She says the followers are Kenya's only merchant force, so that makes Elpam their enemy. But being her enemy's enemy doesn't make him her ally. Even so, the idea of an alliance starts forming. The protagonist asks what he could offer her. Karen says the situation is bigger than he knows. She already knows the Dark Mage's followers were behind Leah's death, and some of them have also slipped into Nautilus. Elpam thinks everything is moving way too fast. Karen says she believes Minoru is their next target, since she became the ship's symbol after Leah died. If Minoru falls, Nautilus will fall into chaos, so they begin to negotiate. Karen asks him to protect Minoru in Eagle Eye Tomb, and in return she'll give him a treasure from Nautilus. Soon people begin entering the portal. Minoru stares ahead, lost in thought. A bright light spreads around them. Then everyone is inside. The blonde woman reminds them this isn't some field trip. A giant paw suddenly drops in front of the 3 fighters. It's a small green monster staring at them, and they think about taking out the baby until a much bigger one appears. It comes out from behind the rocks, all huge jaws and massive teeth. The warrior instantly gives up on attacking the baby once he sees the mother. Gunfire erupts. The creature takes repeated hits and starts weakening. They plan to kill them one at a time, but the shots only bring in more of them. They were only Dracos, but they were fast and enormous. Then a huge explosion rips across the battlefield. The 2 fighters are giving everything they have to bring the creature down. It finally crashes to the ground, wounded, and Zio realizes his plan is working. The red-haired pirate opens fire with her weapon. More Dracos keep pouring in, ready to tear apart anything ahead of them. Elpam turns away from the group, saying he has something else to handle. But the monster is too strong. It slams the fighter down with brutal force. Then it starts smashing through everything in front of it with its giant jaws. Its roar grows louder and louder, and the fighter responds. Elpam says they're fighting with no teamwork and starts showing them what to do. Debo answers that from now on, they're one team. They fight like family. He would take the front and throw the battlefield into chaos. Even if they doubted his skills at first, that was fine. All he had to do was keep pushing ahead no matter what. He'd ignore any attacks coming from behind, because his father would cover him. It was embarrassing, sure, but it meant he'd stay alive. Ralph would become Debo's shield and stop fighting only for himself. From now on, he'd protect him no matter what. Together, they charged the Dracos. Then they put the plan to work. They rushed in and wounded as many beasts as possible. Ralph spotted one closing in on the boy and shouted for him to turn around. Then he slammed straight into the Draco. In that moment, he understood how strong a father's love could be. Kiri, meanwhile, had the most important part. Her power stopped enemies from healing after being burned. That let her finish them off for good. She jumped into the fight against all of them, burning through the monsters and making fast progress. Elpam praised her. Kiri thought it all felt too easy, but the three kept following orders. Two men stood by the portal. One of them noticed someone familiar coming up. It was Kavril, arriving with his invasion team. He said it was urgent, and Minoru needed to hear it right away. A giant Draco was down, and everyone started celebrating. They even managed to collect a stone man and make a find. But in the middle of that, his friend was hit directly. Minoru couldn't believe what she was seeing, as the woman cried out in pain. The blow had been brutal. Then a hand reached out from the portal. Panic spread, and everyone ran. A fight exploded as weapons fired everywhere. Realizing she was in danger, Minoru tried to defend herself. While bullets tore across the battlefield, a red glow flared behind her. She instantly sensed the threat. Minoru fired her magnum to protect herself. Rocks started rolling across the ground. That was when she noticed someone coming. Furious, she demanded an answer. It was Elpam, and he said he was just cleaning up. A huge flame gathered as he told Minoru to stay still so he could finish fast. Then the group realized they forgot someone. Debru yelled that they had left him behind, and he couldn't understand why Debo brought him along just to abandon him. To survive, he hid inside an anthill. Still, he knew he couldn't stay there forever. From inside, he searched for some way out. As a second circle adventurer, he had no idea what to do. He only knew he didn't want to die there. After walking for a while, he found a second portal. Then something appeared behind him. Terrified, he spun around and tried to strike it. Once he saw it was Elpam's creature, he calmed down. He wondered how long the beast had been there. A sudden sound made him jump. He screamed as light flooded the area. It was the portal. The creature just stood there watching. Ibru let out a breath and headed for the portal. With strange power in his eye, Elpam ordered Minoru not to move. He told her it would be over soon. The red-haired woman snapped and demanded answers. Then a weapon fired, and red light burst from the device on MC's eye. Everyone covered themselves from the blast. Kajal and his group arrived to help. Elpam immediately ran, and the white-haired man ordered everyone to chase him. Karen had sensed something was wrong and sent Kajal's group through the portal. Minoru asked if Karen had really given that order. Then the man arrived at full force. He started tearing through everyone without stopping. Kip fired back and opened up with his gun. A brutal fight broke out. Now everyone was after Elpam. Flames spread in every direction. People were terrified when a massive explosion hit. Like a fugitive, Elpam hid and watched his attacks land. He kept running until someone started shooting at him. Minoru, firing at incredible speed. She kept pulling the trigger, trying to bring him down. He ran to stay ahead of the bullets. He kept going until he spotted a portal. The others kept fighting to stop him from escaping. A red beam fired from the device in his eye. Then he used his power to help himself escape. A huge slab of earth rose from the ground. The light was blinding. People scrambled for cover. Pieces of stone started crashing down. The rubble fell near the passage where Minoru stood. Then even more rocks broke loose and dropped. The smoke got so thick the pirate started coughing. Elpam was already ready, staff in hand. Minoru watched him carefully. He was set to strike with everything he had, and she was trapped. His red staff glowed with power, but nothing happened. Shaken, Minoru asked what he was trying to do. He looked right at her, then asked if she was ready to hear the truth. The trigger was about to be pulled. Elsewhere, the others argued, thinking Minoru had nearly been shot. A gunshot rang out, and both turned to look. Someone shouted in relief when they saw Minoru safe, but then she suddenly opened fire on them, and no one understood why. Gun raised, she fired shot after shot. The white-haired man froze in shock. A hit threw him backward. He couldn't make sense of any of it. Minoru stood over them on the rocks. The other man was just as confused by her actions. She had spoken with Elpam, who said he'd already sacrificed everything because of the girl's stubbornness. The red-haired woman called out to the new arrivals and ordered Zio to gather everyone and leave. She added that Karen gave the order. A large gold necklace hung around her neck. Then someone crossed the giant portal. At the same time, Ibru stayed with Elpam's beast, regretting ever coming and wishing he'd just waited behind. He was in a dark cave full of bones. Far off he spotted someone walking. He ran over, shouting to the stranger. Ibru said he wanted to stick together since he'd gotten separated from his group. Instead, he was suddenly attacked. It came from the slug beside him, muttering, "Kua." That's when Ibru realized who the stranger was. He looked up and saw a huge monster. His eyes went wide in shock as more and more appeared. Minoru kept telling Zio to leave, but he noticed the item around her neck. It looked like a medallion he knew. Back with Minoru and Elpam, she was still arguing with him, gun aimed and ready. As he spoke about Leah's death, the protagonist warned that followers of the Dark Mage had infiltrated the pirates and were the ones who killed Eagle Eye. He said Karen sent him to stop Moldoru from becoming the next target. Shocked by what she heard, Moldoru didn't react. She started to believe her own allies had killed Leah. Then Elpam handed her Karen's necklace. It was the captain's symbol, so she believed him. But then she started wondering how MC knew exactly who to attack. A hooded figure spoke with Cheryl, saying he disagreed and didn't want to trust someone so easily. The penetration monocle could see mana flow and identify followers of the Dark Mage. No one had used it since Korra died. Elpam couldn't understand how someone who looked like a mage could handle it. The warrior began to think it might all be a trap. Still, he told them to trust him, and said it would be fine. They only needed to watch. If the user's mana was too weak, the item would break him. Everyone listened closely to Minoru. She said that aside from the three standing in front, everyone else there was a follower. Her eyes were full of fury. One of the accused protested, and told her not to trust Elpam. But the monocle had already started proving itself. Before the regression, followers were hard to identify, because their tattoos only showed when mana was applied. The man stepped forward. Just because the mark couldn't be seen, didn't mean it wasn't there. Elpam grabbed the white-haired man, and a tattoo appeared on his forehead. It glowed red for everyone to see. It was the Dark Mage's mark. Everyone was horrified by the monocle's power, and Minoru instantly started shooting at the followers. Battle erupted inside the cave as the fighters struggled to understand how there could be so many followers. A scattering cannon blasted at full power. Minoru led from the front without fear, while the pirates shouted and fought back. Elpam had spent too much mana tracking the followers, and didn't want to stay at a disadvantage. In the distance, he spotted a second portal. Minoru yelled at him for trying to hide. She said she'd finish it alone, and told him to leave if he didn't want to get hurt. A skull-shaped object released its power. The fight still wasn't over, and everyone stayed ready. Then everything went dark, and Minoru couldn't see a thing. A beam of light appeared far away. The sound made her flinch. A man said she shouldn't be able to see anything, and warned her to get ready. No one understood what was happening. The pirates were blind. Someone aimed a weapon at Minoru, planning to send her to the same fate as Eagle Eye. A deafening shot rang out. That left Minoru trapped, but Elpam saved her. The one who fired was stunned. The bullet never reached her, and the protagonist could still see. A man yelled for them to shoot the adventurer, because he was too dangerous to predict. All the guns fired at once. Elpam used mana to defend himself, and his power threw everyone into panic. He tightened his grip on the staff and cut down everyone trying to kill him. Then a cannon fired to stop his rampage. A huge explosion tore through the cave, hitting many head-on. The power on display gave them a big edge. Then came the call to retreat, and phoenix feathers appeared. The revolver's power was unleashed. The battle stayed fierce, but the direction of the flaming arrows suddenly changed. One follower of the mage held the skull in his hands until he suddenly lost an arm and took a dagger to the chest. Minoru got her sight back and saw what had happened. Now the panic really began. The Dark Mage's followers claim they're doing this for him. Then bombs start raining down. They all go off at once. The blast sends everyone flying. Elpam still manages to protect the others, but he's at his limit, and needs to reach the portal before his mana is gone. The group rushes for the portal. When Minoru gets attacked from behind, Elpam tries to save her with his power, but the follower keeps tossing bombs. They hit the fighters head-on. A huge explosion rips through the cave, sending debris everywhere. Minoru is hurt badly, and can barely endure the pain. Then she realizes another bomb has already struck. The ground caves in. A crater opens up, and the portal is destroyed. Seeing the portal in ruins, the adventurers fear Elpam, and the others are gone. But one of the young men tells them not to panic. The portal should come back soon. Right now, they need to focus on the real goal, killing Minoru. Using corkscrew, Pedro lunges at her, and she blocks with her weapon. But then he activates his admiral wings. That instantly alarms her. Her defense did nothing. Her only choice is to leap away from the next punch, one that would have knocked her out cold. Landing cleanly, she moves behind the young man and fires shot after shot without stopping, using both pistols. Clinging to her opponent, she turns his body into a shield against the other's attacks. It works perfectly, and buys her time to strike back. Even wounded, the follower of evil keeps trying to finish the mission. Then a shot slams into his stomach, followed by one to the head, killing him on the spot. His allies cry out his name. Menor glares at them and says there's no time to waste, so why aren't they attacking her? Elsewhere, Elpam stares at what looks like countless portals. The bearded adventurer explains these are special portals, and each one leads to a different place in the second phase. Once enough people use one, it shuts down, forcing everyone else to take another route. 3 of them pass through and safely reach the other side. Then Ibiru comes running, chased by monsters, screaming and thanking the trio for saving him. Debo immediately tells him not to come closer, and to keep running past them. Elpam shows up and using his artifact, lands a heavy blow. One ally, Shaken, says these monsters aren't normal. They're wearing the crew's clothes, so they must have once been human. Worse, even headshots won't kill them. Troubled, Elpam can't understand it. How can a monster have no core, and why is this different from his past life? Looking closer, he spots a mana thread connected to the creature's bodies, stretching all the way behind a wall. Meanwhile, Daibo keeps fighting on the other side. Mana drained, Elpam grabs his head in frustration. He can barely keep his ability going. Sensing danger, one adventurer yells at him to move before he gets hit. A huge blast suddenly wipes out the monster attacking them. Mina appears, revealing she was behind it. After firing several more shots, she lands beside the group. No time for talk. She just warns them to get out of the way, unless they want to be blown apart. Then she fires an insanely powerful attack that even sends stones flying off the ground. From the floor, Elpam looks ahead and sees a giant crater. Even then, there are still too many monsters, and they're ready to attack again. The red-haired girl says she might be able to fire another shot like that if she uses all her mana, but Elpam cuts her off. She may need that power later. Instead, he asks her to give him 3 minutes before making her move. That's all he needs to clear the portal. While fighting, Debo can't figure out why these monsters won't die no matter what he does. Then his luck runs out when one grabs his neck with crushing force. But another adventurer saves him just in time and tells him to quit whining and swing his axe again. Annoyed, Iburu keeps hacking away, yelling for the creatures to just drop already. One of his blows lands, and his ally praises the hit. But a huge tentacle rises from the ground, proving the fight is nowhere near over. A giant monster emerges in front of them. Furious, it was woken up. That leaves the red-banded young man regretting the move he thought looked so cool. Trying to stop it, the adventurers unleash everything they have. At the same time, Elpam feels like his heart might burst if he keeps going. He can't risk advancing to the next circle, so this is his only choice. It reminds him of his past life, when he got stuck the same way and had to find another path to grow stronger. That method uses mana stones, which were supposed to be only for reaching the next circle, but since they carry a monster's life force, Elpam wonders if his core can turn that energy into mana instead. In theory, it could restore lost mana, as long as he can control the surge. To do it, he has to guide the mana to his heart through his bloodstream and survive until the process ends. Still fighting hard, Minoru hears a voice praising her work. She turns and sees MC, who tells her to get ready to use that special ability. As the battle drags on, one adventurer notices a mushroom growing from his body. He realizes this is how people get turned into zombies, so he cuts his own arm to rip the mushroom off. Then he uses healing magic to restore the wound and shouts a warning. Don't let the tentacles touch you unless you want to become one of those disgusting zombies. Debo starts wondering if this thing is the area's boss. At the same time, Cheryl sees the group is moving too slowly, and if that doesn't change, they'll all die. The axe-wielding young man steps up and tells everyone else to fall back and find safety. Set on becoming the hero, he charges the creature with everything he's got, and gets hit straight by its tongue. As he falls, he realizes someone stepped in front of him and saved him from dying. On the other side of the wall, Minoru gets instructions from Elpam. He tells her to hold the ability steady while he handles the aim. That should finally open a path to the area where the rest of the group is fighting the boss. With no time left, he tells her to start their one chance is now. Minoru obeys and fires her crushing bullet, which tears through the wall and leaves destruction in its wake. In his head, Elpam begs the shot to go faster, before he and Minoru run out of strength. Pushing with everything left, he tells her to hold on, then releases several fire arrows. They boost the crushing bullet speed and make the attack even stronger. One group member shouts that he's out of ammo as monsters close in. Another tries to help and tells him to be careful. Thinking fast, Elpam realizes these coreless monsters were tricked and turned into puppets by the true core owner, the boss hidden behind the massive stone wall. That's why they seem impossible to kill. So if they want to end this, they have to take down the leader, not the minions. Clenching his fist, Elpam steps in and prepares rocket impact, fully shattering the core of the creature controlling the others. On the ground, everyone stares in shock as a massive explosion erupts, and the smaller monsters blow up instantly too. Tears in his eyes. Iburu is just relieved to still be alive. With the process finished, Elpam smiles and says the portal is clear now. Minoru then remembers the past. Her parents were awful, and Lee was the only one who stood up for her against them, becoming her biggest hero. Speaking to the woman, Minoru says it's been 10 years since their master took them in, though it feels like yesterday. Sadly, the girl says at least her friend is with Kiri. Even so, she feels pressured, like the gap between them keeps growing every minute. Flicking her ear, the woman teases that confidence has never been her strength. Then she gently tells her not to feel pressured. She'll always stay by her side. Back on the battlefield, Debo asks Kiri if she's okay. She says yes, thanks to her new gear, but Ralph snaps that she's really only standing because of his healing. Suddenly, something grabs the group's attention. When they move closer, they find Lee's body tied with ropes to a stone. One of them wonders if she tied herself up before turning into a zombie mushroom. In her pocket, they find a letter saying the Dark Mage's followers have returned, and already dug deep into Nautilus. She won't be able to return soon, so their master has to act. She also left a note for Minoru, warning that half the group were traitors. Because of that, she must trust no one. Reading it all makes the red-haired adventurer break down in tears. Meanwhile, outside the portal, the Dark Mage's followers say the others should have been back by now. One man says Cadril took the Knight's fragment, so there was no need to worry about the team's safety. Then one of his allies is struck, and everyone realizes they've walked into a huge ambush. A pistol user appears and asks one of the men how it feels to be tricked for the first time. After wiping them out, she orders her soldiers to hold their ground. A man standing before her says not to worry. They sent that man with the group for a reason. Kiri, full of worry, says that if Minoru doesn't come back she'll never forgive herself. Then someone calls her name, making her freeze. Minoru appears, carrying Leia's body in her arms, leaving the woman and her ally totally shocked. Through tears, Minoru says she brought her sister back, and Kirin can't hold back her own tears either. Later, a huge crowd gathers on boats with lit torches. Tiembo is shocked by how many people came, and Kiri says almost all of Nautilus is here. After all, this is Eagle Eye's funeral. Wondering about someone else, he asks where Elpam is. He's with Kirin, drinking a mana potion. She tells him what he's asking for is no small favor. Mana potions are extremely rare, especially now that the recipe is gone. Elpam says he knows, that's why he came to her, since she has the money to make it happen. Kirin asks why he wants to help again, and he says there's still more they need to finish together. Since she still doesn't fully trust him, he says to treat it like another deal, give him 2 items from her collection instead of 1. In return, he'll find every Dark Mage follower hiding in Nautilus. After the funeral, an adventurer asks Minoru why she seems so lost in thought. She sadly says it's nothing, and tells him to leave her alone. Instead, he tells her she should accept Elpam's offer to join. After all, things worked out this time, but the people who killed Leah are still out there, and if there's one thing he knows she wants, it's revenge, and he wants that too. Wrapping it up, Zio smiles and says he'll watch over this place if she chooses to leave. Minoru jokes that she can't trust him because he's too weak, and that kicks off a playful back and forth. The next day, Elpam rides with Kirin on a boat. They stop in front of a huge gate watched by armed adventurers. The moment they recognize Kirin, they let the two of them pass. Once inside, Elpam realizes this is where the pirate stores her treasure and is stunned. He asks if she can at least give short descriptions of what he picks, but Kirin refuses. A pirate doesn't explain the value of her treasure. The deal was 2 items, nothing else. Looking over the wealth around him, he thinks it's even more amazing than he expected, so he has to choose carefully. Kirin notices he seems to have already made up his mind, and is surprised he chose so fast. Elpam walks up to an item glowing blue. He recalls that when the followers brought their plans to the surface, some of them slaughtered the Allied forces. One was a young man named Leek, called the Traitor of Humanity. He had slipped into the Allied forces as a spy, then betrayed them right when they were about to strike back, using the very item in front of Elpam, an object that became a symbol of fear. He takes it and puts it on his arm, telling Kirin this is his first choice. She says nothing, but thinks he picked well, even if she can't see why he wanted that one. As he keeps looking around, something shining from a pile of gold catches his eye. When he gets closer, he finds a ring that seems to give off no energy at all. Then, to his surprise, it suddenly jumps onto his finger. Startled, he asks Kirin what it is and why it just did that. She apologizes, but says the ring belongs to someone else, so he'll need to pick another item. Elpam says that makes sense, except for one problem. He can't get the ring off his finger. Far away, someone kneels and reports that the mission in Gold Richie was completed. The man listening asks about Elpam, saying things should be over by now. The young woman in front of him starts to shake and apologizing, admits this mission failed. Furious, Vuk yells, asking how they messed up even with the fragment of the night. Then he gives her one last chance. If she fails again, she'll die for it. Meanwhile, Minoru packs her things, making it clear she's ready to leave. On the boat, the bearded adventurer smiles and says they'll be back soon. He also tells Bei to work on his dart skills while they're gone. Tiurbo asks Elpam if they can head out, and he says yes, but Minoru shows up and tells them to wait. Then she asks if there's room for one more on the boat. Elsewhere, 2 people are desperately fighting for their lives. After seeing one of their allies get wiped out, one young man tells the other to keep running, while his friend yells back not to turn around. The braided young man shouts that if this keeps up, neither of them will survive. Spotting what looks like a trap, Booker tells his friend to run, then activates it with a sigh. The move works, but before he can escape too, a giant sword slams straight into him. Wounded, he tells the other young man to get out while he still can. Behind them, a knight in armor on a skeletal horse gets ready to strike again. Mr. Abyss, angry, demands to know how Elpam can walk into his office after coming back empty-handed. Completely calm, the protagonist says he has a plan. He explains that Minoru, the followers' target during the raid, has joined the group, so the enemy will definitely come after them again. The man snaps, asking if MC thinks he's stupid enough to just sit and wait. MC thinks to himself that he still can't reveal everything because starting a war now won't fix the whole problem, so he only says it won't take long. Later, an adventurer asks Elpam why he added another member without asking the team. Timbo cuts in and asks why the leader needs his permission, when he's the one in charge. The man argues he is only a temporary leader. He says maybe, but if he has a problem, he should say it because he can challenge him for leadership anytime he wants. Annoyed, the bearded adventurer replies that he only cares about the money, and one more member means a smaller share for him. Elpam stands and says he has somewhere to be, so training is over for today. As the team heads off in different directions, the bodyguards complain that life would be easier if everyone stayed together. Still, they split up too, so they can cover everyone. Thinking back to what Kiri told him, Elpam goes to meet the owner of the ring that still won't come off. When he arrives, he tells the blonde young woman he came to ask for her approval, leaving her confused. Showing her the ring, he says he wants its ownership transferred to him. Her eyes widen in shock the moment she sees it, then she says she can't do anything because the real owner isn't here right now. Elpam asks where he can find him, and she says he'll have to rescue him first. Pyre, the tracker of heroes, the same young man who was fighting the skeletal knight. It turns out that on the day of the apocalypse, humanity's last hope when it stood on the edge of extinction was Evan, the successor of Freud, Luminous, the challenger of fate, Phantom, the great thief, Mercedes, queen of the elves, Aran, the axe heroine, and Shade, the mysterious hero, the 6 legendary heroes. Together, they showed the world overwhelming power, and through the miracle they performed, they gave humanity hope that one day the world could be saved. But that never happened. During the battle with the Black Mage 800 years ago, the heroes' items fell into the rift of time and started appearing in the portals of this era for some unknown reason. With the alliance broken, the heroes couldn't recover their powers, so this time they need strong shields to protect them. Elpam says he'll act as bait to draw out the followers and also bring the Maple World factions together to build a stronger alliance, and finally change history. As they near the destination, Debo is amazed by what he sees. Then Elpam tells everyone to place a marked piece of cloth somewhere on their body. As soon as they do, a huge portal opens. Menor is stunned and says they never would have found that on their own. The protagonist thinks to himself, with the ring still stuck on his finger, that he has to save Pyre no matter what, since Pyre can track the hero's items. Inside, in a fortress, the axe user celebrates clearing the first portal in only 3 hours. Kiri tells him to wipe the ash off his face, then says the job was easy. The red-haired girl looks surprised and asks if he only had the first circle, but he proudly says he's a genius and grows fast. Elpam joins in and warns him not to rush, because despite what people say, raising your circles too fast isn't always good. It makes all your stats shift too quickly, puts stress on the body, and can even slow future growth. He finishes by saying he only did it before because he had no choice, and privately remembers how badly it hurt him in his past life, when he couldn't go past the 7th circle. So this time, he has to advance at the right moments if he wants to reach the 8th. Kiri cuts off his thoughts and asks if they got here too fast, since they came to find someone, not clear the portal. Elpam reassures her, saying he already checked and they haven't lost the target. Using his magical eye patch, he warns the group they've got company. A moment later, flying monsters with skull-like faces rush in to attack. Seeing how many there are, the leader tells everyone to get started. Menor points out that bullets won't work well on skeletons. Then someone suddenly appears, shouting for everyone to get down. He triggers a trap, and the creatures are wiped out. Standing behind the group, Pyre says that technique is called Monocle of 7 Penetrations, then immediately begs them for food because he's starving. After recovering a bit, he explains that he learned the skeleton's behavior and the traps in this place from being stuck here so long. The only real problem is that he ran out of food 5 days ago, and there weren't any monsters around to eat. Pyre says he survived by hunting, but Elpam cuts him off. He has something he wants to ask first. Then he decides to hold it until Pyre finishes eating. Glad to hear that, the red-haired adventurer says if Pyre knows where the exit portal is, they can just rush for it, and skip fighting the boss. Hearing that, Pyre drops to his knees and begs them to guard him for 3 days, because he still has to find an item, and if he leaves now, his friends died for nothing. He admits he's bad at fighting, so alone he'd end up just like the others. If they help, he promises them a reward. Curious, Elpam asks how he expects to find it in 3 days when he failed for a whole month. Tienner explains that he never searched the truly dangerous areas. Somewhere else Evoke says his plan is finally starting, and this time MC won't get away. Then someone appears behind him and asks if he's really sure about that. When he turns around, he comes face to face with a spider-like figure, who says it's pathetic that he still can't handle one small explorer and asks how long he plans to keep embarrassing himself. Dropping to his knees, Evoke says he has no excuse for his failures and will take any punishment, but begs for one last chance, since his plan is already moving. The creature Will accepts and tells him to explain the plan clearly. Back inside the portal, the adventurers keep battling skeletons that just won't stop coming. Worse, the monsters fight smart, even using shields while they attack. Then another trap goes off and seals them inside a room. Debo grins and says that with the path blocked, their job should be easier, but Pyre warns them not to relax. These devices aren't perfect, and when one route closes, another opens. Staring down a giant knight with an enormous sword, Elpam says none of that matters. They just need to find Pyre's item. The axe-wielding adventurer wonders if this is even the right place. He says the air here feels different, but when asked who could have built a place like this, he admits he has no clue. Kiri then calls everyone over to something she found, a plaque, with writing in a strange language. Pyre steps closer and says it's an old riddle that seems to point to where the item is hidden. Menor asks if a weird symbol on a huge door might be connected, and the others say they found matching doors too. Pyre figures each symbol means something, with some easier to read than others. After thinking it over, he tells them to pour mana into the light symbol, based on the clue. Debo gives it a try, and one door opens, leaving him shocked at how simple it seemed. But a second later, a huge explosion goes off. When the smoke clears, he's unharmed, just rattled. Pyra says that means the riddle's light wasn't the sun. After another moment of thought, he decides the answer must be the moon. This time the bearded adventurer steps up and says he trusts him, then gets smashed by a huge rock. Panicking, Pyra swears he'll get it right next time. Kiri points out the one thing they know for sure: the traps go off whenever they choose wrong, and this one seems tied to the rock element, though she still doesn't know what the X means. Elpam says they should solve the riddle first, then match it to the symbol. If the text says an actor is watching them from above, then it could be the moon, the stars, or the clouds. Since clouds don't fit, they should keep following the light. That makes Pyra realize the answer is the stars, because their lights stay in the sky even as people move below, so the X symbol must stand for them. He steps forward, puts his hand on the door, and a blue glow spreads across it. A dark corridor opens inside, and Pyra lets out a breath, saying they got it right. Now they should find the item by following the path. But a dark-haired woman suddenly appears and says she and her allies will take it from here. Alpam jumps in front of Pyra and blocks her strike. She attacks again, and he stops that one too. Then counters with his staff and knocks her down. But the woman uses teleportation and reappears behind him. The rest of the group gets ready to move, but more enemies show up first, catching them off guard. As they get surrounded, another woman tells them to calm down. They only want the hero's item. Pyra asks the protagonist how these people found the portal entrance, and the protagonist says he doesn't know. Then Soma says their confused faces make it obvious they have questions, so he attacks and tells them to ask him directly. Ralph suddenly turns on the group leader, and Daibo yells, asking what he thinks he's doing. Ralph answers that he's doing it for money, showing he was a traitor all along. A flashback shows him admiring his pile of riches when someone knocked at his door, making him quickly lock up his safe and shove it under the bed. Annoyed, he opens the door and, seeing his bodyguards, tells them to get back to work and quit bothering him. One of them says someone important wants to meet him. Ralph laughs it off, saying he isn't interested, especially when they send lackeys first, instead of leading with an offer. That's when Kamiya from the merchant group steps in and says she'd rather discuss the deal herself. Back in the present, Ralph notices Kiri's face and asks her not to look at him like that. Debo, furious, curses him out and asks how he could sell them out for some gold. Ralph laughs and says it's a lot more than just some gold. Elpam's head alone is worth 100 million mesos. He asks who would be stupid enough to turn that down. Minner finally moves to shut their former ally up for good, and that sparks the Black Mage's followers into action too. The gray-haired woman attacks Kiri, and calmly says she'll go first. Kiri snaps back, asking if she really thinks that cheap trick will work. The enemy says yes, because even though Kiri learned to use two-handed weapons, she still puts her real power into her right-hand swings. Once you know that pattern, dodging her gets easy. She keeps talking mid-fight, saying Debo is strong in a one-on-one battle, but weak when facing several enemies, then tells them to accept their fate since the enemy already knows everything about them. Menver fires back at once, but an enemy appears behind her and says that reaction was exactly what they'd expect from Chiron's student. She shoots at the woman, but the enemy teleports away and lashes out with chains to pin her down. At the same time, Ralph gets in the way during another fight and says keeping that young man down isn't easy, even with broken ribs. Pyra takes a direct hit and can't block it, but to the enemy's shock, it was only an illusion, and the real Pyra was somewhere else. He appears behind them, slaps his hand onto one of the symbols, and triggers a trap. A huge pit opens beneath them, and all the enemies drop in. The heroes shout for each other to grab something before they fall too. Debo drives his axe into the wall and tells everyone to hold tight. Dangling there, they get ready to move into a passage hidden in the wall and barely make it through. They survive, but then a door drops down and seals the hole behind them. The floor above closes too, trapping everyone underground. The area looks like a maze, and all the split paths seem to lead to different sections. Kiri says the openings in the walls must connect to those routes. Menner says they might run into Elpam if they're lucky, but it isn't likely. Then while walking, she steps on a trap. Bars slam down from above at once. The group dodges them but gets split apart. Kiri shakes the bars and calls Debo an idiot, while he fires back that this wasn't his fault. Then gears start grinding, and to their horror, the walls around Debo and Menner begin closing in. Kiri tries cutting the bars with Solar Slash, but they don't even scratch. The gate is covered by an energy barrier. Menner switches tactics and fires a crushing bullet, blasting the gate. On the other side, Kiri braces herself and the bars bend like they're about to snap. Still, they don't break, and the blast slips through them instead. When the smoke clears, she looks up with hope, but sees it didn't work. Then she notices the walls are closing in faster. Debo plants both hands against them and tries to hold them back. He roars with effort, and for a moment, it actually works. Kiri sees that and shouts his name. Debo growls that he refuses to die like this. Menner braces herself too and calls for Kiri's help, saying she doesn't want to join Leah that soon. On the other side, Kiri desperately searches for some way to help. Sweating hard, Debo says they need a new plan. He admits he hates owing people favors and wanted to save her someday the way she saved him before, but since that won't happen now, he tells her she'll have to play the hero again and save him one more time. Kiri smiles and calls him an idiot for joking at a time like this, then tightens her grip on her sword. She yells for him to hold on a little longer. If the gate runs on magic, then something nearby has to be feeding mana into it. As she runs, she tells Debiho he now owes her 2 favors, and better not die before paying them back. At the same time, Elpam and Pyre are running from Kanya, and she says both of them are monsters. They hit a dead end, and the maze is so twisted they have no idea where to go next. Looking back at the pursuers, Elpam yells for them to wait. He grabs his spear and activates a skill. While falling back, he and Pyre attack to force the enemies away. Ralph shouts that they shouldn't underestimate them. The woman says they've got them trapped, and they can't keep running forever. Then something appears above her. It explodes, hitting one of the group and forcing the others back. She comes out unharmed, and the man tells her not to die before she pays him back. One of them throws a knife at Fur, and she blocks it with her protection talisman. But the attacker boosts the blade with a shuriken blast. Right before it hits, someone yanks her by the neck and pulls her away from the blast. Elpam drags her off by her clothes, while she complains about her neck. Once they're far enough, he drops her to the ground. As their pursuers close in, he gets ready to fight. Using his skill, he lands a hit right in one enemy's stomach. The others keep throwing boosted knives, and he starts weaving around them. Every blade that lands blows up and tears through the area. Soon, Elpam is surrounded by dozens of Kamiya members. Even so, he cuts down anyone who gets too close, but there are too many, and he starts wearing out. No matter how many he drops, more still circle him. They stare at him in shock and call him a monster. Meanwhile, Kiri reaches a device releasing a surge of energy. Worn out, she wonders if this is the one she needed. If not, she doesn't have time to search for another. Still, it's clearly feeding mana to the whole area. Studying it, she senses a huge amount of mana and realizes breaking it could free her friends. But someone behind her calls out with a smile. The woman attacks with bad jujutsu and hits her head on. Kiri stops and turns to face her, and the woman says Kiri's luck just ran out. Kill her, and the other 2 die too. She keeps pushing, saying Kiri is the weakest of the 3, and this couldn't be easier. Kiri tells her to move. She doesn't have time for this. Kasia introduces herself and says she can't do that, then calmly asks to talk it out. Kiri grabs her sword and uses Rising Sun, telling Kasia to shut up because she's busy. Taking up her weapons, Kasia calls her foolish and stubborn, then says she'll have to kill her. As Kiri blocks, she wonders how Kasia carries so many knives. Then she realizes some of them are fake. One flies straight at her, and when she dodges, she sees the damage it does to the ground. That makes it worse. She can't tell which blades are real. While defending herself, she catches one coming from behind and knocks it away. Kasia is changing the blade's paths with telekinesis. At that same moment, a sword flies straight at her and seems sure to hit. But to Kasia's surprise, Kiri catches it with her arm before it reaches her stomach. Then she figures it out. This isn't telekinesis. Kasia is guiding the weapons with wires. Grabbing one, Kiri realizes she can use that against her. She yanks it, dragging Kasia toward her with a grin. At the same time, several blades race along the wires and slam into Kasia as she tries to shield herself. Kasia launches herself with a wire and uses Batujutsu again, rushing straight at Kiri. The blast from the strike kicks up stones and dust. Balancing on her wires, Kasia says Kiri has no talent for this and should ditch her friends and run. Seeing her down, she says Kiri should do it, unless her pride won't let her. She reminds Kiri she was born into a famous, rich, powerful family and still chose a dangerous life. Annoyed, Kiri tells her to stop talking, but Kasia just says not to frown. It's bad for her skin. As she closes in, she says Maple World doesn't give chances to people from nothing. So is it fair that someone from a good family gets second and third chances even without talent? Kiri flashes back to her childhood, hearing someone tell her to get out of their sight and say she's only there because of her family. Kasia says Kiri's group is full of amazing adventurers, except for her, and she starts listing everyone's strengths to put her down. But Kiri cuts her off. She admits she's weak and hasn't made her master or her parents proud. She knows she's still far behind her friends. Charging forward, she says that still doesn't make Kasia better. Again, she tells her to move. There's no time. Kasia grabs her sword, calls Kiri stubborn trash, and Kiri readies her next attack. Using the wires, Kasia sends the knives at her. Kiri answers with Falling Moon Lunar Division. Kasia stares, wondering what kind of skill that is and why nobody warned her about it. Then her wires start getting sliced apart. As they snap, Kiri rushes in and says cheap tricks won't save her. Then she follows with Hitokuru 100 Strikes. In her memory, someone asks if she really thinks her family is why she was chosen to be an adventurer. A man slams his hand down and says some people can't see the value of a treasure. He tells her not to let others define her or limit herself. Coming closer, he says if she truly understands that, she'll believe in herself and become stronger than anyone. Kasia can't believe Kiri has matched her speed. They're suddenly face to face. With one clean strike, Kiri hits her. Kasia swings back and demands how she dares, but Kiri slips past it. Fire wasn't her only power, the force inside her was as vast as the universe beyond. She uses Equinox Cycle, sending a huge fireball at Cassia. With her sword, Cassia pushes forward and cuts through the fireball with a gust. Maybe Kiri is finally starting to understand what her master meant. She'd never find herself by pretending to be someone else. She just fears she may have learned it too late. Even so, she still believes in her friends, who trust her and each other. Elsewhere, Kamiya members shout behind them, calling them filthy rats and swearing they'll find them. Fur says they can't keep dodging forever with tricks like this. Then she looks at Elpam and tells him to hang on. The enemies find them and move in to capture them. But MC drops anyone who gets too close. They turn on Fur, mocking her as a rookie who can't fight, which makes her mad. She fires back with magic and yells that they're underestimating her. Then she realizes it isn't working, and she starts crying, admitting she lied, then begs them to keep underestimating her. Right after that, 2 blasts slam into the men closing in on her, and through the dust she spots Elpam. One enemy says he looks exhausted and suddenly drives a hit into his stomach, making him spit red liquid. Fur watches in alarm. Even hurt, Elpam reaches out toward the enemy's face and fires his skill. A huge explosion goes off, kicking up stone and dust. Bowen calls him stubborn, but when she moves in again, she sees they've vanished. Ralph says this is getting annoying, and admits they underestimated Elpam. Bowen says it's fine, their prey was already bitten. Somewhere else, Fur asks if he is okay after seeing him spit up red liquid. When he looks at it, he sees smoke rising from it, and asks if it was poison. His enemies run after him, knowing he has at most 40 minutes. The poison is deadly, causing horrible pain and fatal damage. Ralph says he won't get far. They reach 2 paths, and Biju splits off, telling Ralph to do his job. Fur carries Elpam through one corridor, saying she never thought it would get this bad, and she shouldn't have pushed to explore the ruins. Head lowered, he starts to worry. The protagonist tells her not to blame herself. The wound's power would have reached him sooner or later. This wasn't like the twins. That woman really was using teleportation. He says he'll handle Biju, and tells Fur to do what they came here for, leaving her confused. Looking up, he says the thing above must be the door that only the device can open. If he's right, solving the puzzle will send mana to it. Touching the stone, Fur tells him to hold on. She'll do her best. Then she starts working on the puzzle. Sitting behind her, Elpam says there's no need to rush because he has something to do too. He activates his ability and starts scanning the labyrinth's rooms. As Ralph runs, he orders everyone not to interfere because the boy is his. One of the men says they don't have to listen. Ralph turns and tells him to take it up with the boss without noticing a fireball coming right at him. Then lightning shoots out and one of the men beside him gets hit. Another says he can't see Elpam anywhere. Ralph wonders if MC is using the monocle to reach the whole structure. While he's thinking, another lightning bolt flies at him, and he barely dodges it. At the same time, Fur finishes the puzzle. She turns to Elpam and says the device should activate now, but when she looks at him, he doesn't answer, and she starts to panic. Something breaks behind her, and she asks what's going on. Then she realizes the mana flow was cut off. Someone found them. Ralph says he finally caught them, and puts a hand on her shoulder. Elsewhere, Debo asks if the others heard something behind them. He moves toward a corner and notices the walls shaking. Then a huge wave of water rushes at them, and they run for their lives. They aren't fast enough, and the wave catches them. The current is powerful, surging from every direction and hurling them away. Bijou asks what that annoying noise is, and says they need to hurry, but someone cuts her off, saying she talks too much. He explains the place is about to flood, and she says she thought he'd run off. Carrying Fur and Elpam, Ralph says he's been through a lot. He brings up the others who died, then notices her reaction and asks if one of them mattered to her. Saying the job is done, he asks for the rest of the money before handing the boy over. Bijou points out he is still breathing, and he says he couldn't kill him, because that wasn't part of the deal. She tosses Ralph the money, and says his attitude gets on her nerves, but at least he's reliable. The price is 100 million mesos. After dropping Elpam and Fur near her, Ralph says it was a pleasure doing business. As she walks up to the young man, Bijou says this is a pretty dull end for someone like him. After everything he did to their group, she says this is only fair, because of the Black Mage. Then she corrects herself. She's doing this for her master, Lord of Oak. Laughing, she starts tearing apart the bodies on the ground, but then she realizes she was wrecking one of her own men, not Elpam or Ralph. Right then, Ralph yells and lunges at her. Bijou slips away and says she never should have trusted him, then notices a beam of energy flying at her neck. She keeps dodging, but it tracks her, making her wonder how dare he toy with her. Still, she tells herself it doesn't matter. The poison should have spread by now. All she has to do is check the body. Turning around, she thanks Elpam for showing up and making things easier, adding that he's basically dead already. Behind her, the man raises his bow and fires flaming arrows at her. She stares at him, shocked he's still standing, but there's no time to think. The attacks keep getting stronger until a huge blast goes off. From inside the smoke, Ralph tells them to calm down. The cloud in front of them slowly clears, and when Bijou steps out, they see just how tough she is. She asks Ralph why he turned on her when she thought he'd do anything for money. He says if her side wins, the world ends. And if that happens, all the money he worked for is just toilet paper. So what's the point? Being on her side was part of his master's plan from the start. Elpam knew Kenya was backed into a corner and would hire an assassin. And once they checked Ralph, the answer was clear. She asks if hurting the protagonist was part of that plan too, and Ralph says he's the best healer in Maple World, so the wound would be gone in no time. Of course, a real attack would have been a problem, but he says he doesn't mean to brag. Grinning, he says he just made 100 million mesos thanks to her, and now she's on her own. Using her Beiju ability, she swears she'll make him regret that choice. Elsewhere, Kiri is underwater when Debo swings over to her. He grabs her and she jolts awake. Once they reach the surface, he asks if she's okay. Mindai shows up too and asks what happened. Debo says they're in serious trouble. Water is pouring in from every direction, and the whole place could flood in less than 30 minutes. Looking up, the girl says the only escape is to open the ceiling, but that's impossible, now because she destroyed the power source. Something suddenly appears behind Menhir, spraying water everywhere. When Debo asks what it is, he's left confused. In front of them, a statue starts to move. Elsewhere, amid the flames, the girl pants heavily. Looking at the body on the ground, she calls him scum. Hell is too kind for trash like him. She says he only got what he deserved. A man behind her says her future isn't any better, because her hands are bloody too. Surrounded by fire and corpses, he says his revenge is finally over. Then he adds that, as promised, his life belongs to her now. Meanwhile, Beiju keeps destroying Elpam and Ralph's clones. She wonders when they'll quit, saying clone tricks are old news. Most of them are just illusions, so they can't hurt her. But the real issue, she realizes, is that some of them are real. First, anger urges them to hurry. She can't keep using her talismans much longer. Elpam activates his monocle and fires a volley of arrows at Beiju. They explode the second they hit the ground. She slips behind Fur, avoids an attack, and strikes back, saying Fur almost had her. From a distance, Fur says she bets Beiju can't tell which one is real. Ralph joins in too, landing a punch and asking where all that confidence went. Beiju throws out her chains, but Ralph avoids them. Then one slips up and wraps around his neck. He says nice try, but that won't work. The chains keep tightening anyway. Then Elpam rushes in and cuts the chain, only to get hit right after. The three face off, and the girl spits out one word, trash. He walks toward her, says she'll be first, then suddenly dashes off with a quick apology. He uses his ability on them, and the fight keeps going. Watching it all, Fur thinks all three of them are monsters. They keep pressuring the girl, but she tanks everything and fires back. Their attacks trigger blasts so strong they rip stones from the ground. Beiju uses Flash of Darkness, creating a huge burst of purple light that hits both of them and sends them flying. Dropping her weapon, she vows to kill them, even if it costs her life. Then she pauses as the noise in the passages grows louder. Water starts rushing in behind her from the corridors, washing everything away. No one can hold on, and all of them get dragged off. Ralph manages to climb onto one of the raised sections, and hits him before he can pull back. The blow makes him spit red fluid. Burning with rage, she thinks of only one thing, killing them all. Then she attacks Ralph from behind with full force, driving her weapon through his body. As they rise from the water, the other two shout his name. Beiju and Ralph keep fighting even underwater. He swings at her, but she dodges. Soon he starts feeling sick and realizes he's been poisoned. When he opens his eyes again, all he can do is lift a hand to try and stop her. Then he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a glowing object. It shines brightly, and as she avoids another strike, Beiju wonders how that's possible. She quickly realizes it's canceling the poison, which means Elpam has already been healed too. With his back turned, he starts making strange moves, and when she tries to attack, she finds she can't get through. Ralph had called out that it was a sacred magic barrier. From behind it, he can attack freely, and he throws a punch that Beiju barely dodges, then notices something in his hand that unsettles her. That object makes her uneasy. As she backs off, she wonders if he figured it out from the way she moved. Inside the barrier, he says he almost missed it, but couldn't ignore how much she kept bragging about her teleportation artifact. Swimming straight at her, he says it's time to end this. She dodges one more punch, but the next one lands clean. Holding up the item in his hand, he tells her it's useless now. Protected by the barrier, he swims right in front of her and kicks her in the stomach, making her scream. As he keeps hitting her, he says he's not dumb. He memorized her movement pattern, and it was fun while it lasted. Beiju swings her scythe with her ability, trying to cut through the barrier, yelling at him to shut up, and a huge explosion follows. The blast throws him back, and from above she comes down to slash him, saying it wasn't fun at all. But before she can finish it, he grabs her arm. Elpam is already there, bow blazing and ready to fire again. She's so shocked to see him that she misses Ralph, who says he's still here while charging his attack. His punch slams her into the wall hard enough to shake loose chunks of stone. The impact shatters her teleportation artifact into pieces. Now she can't use her darkness teleport at all, and if this keeps up, her mission will fail. Thinking of her master's order, she charges them anyway. Seeing Elpam readying his bow, she decides he'll die no matter what. He fires a flaming arrow at the exact moment she activates her power. Purple and red crash into each other in a violent clash. Beiju searches for a way through the fire. She tells herself she has to finish this. When it's over, her burning body drops toward them. With a knife clenched in her teeth, she says she'll do this for Master Evoke and charges. The only thing she hears is the man saying it's a shame, but he still has one more shot as he draws his arrow. He fires it straight at Beiju. A giant ring of fire bursts out on impact. The only thing she sees ahead is her master, telling her she did well and reaching out his hand. Smiling, she reaches for him, says she's sorry, and the flames swallow her whole. Back in the water, the statue rises again. Menor fires a crushing bullet at it, but it does nothing, and she asks how that thing can even move underwater. An explosion erupts where the statue stands, churning the water around it. The attack hit perfectly, but it still takes no damage and strikes back. The statue changes shape and knocks her into the water, sending up a huge wave. Beiju Bo catches her and jams his axe into the wall to hold on. Kiri parts the water and unleashes her power on the giant. It freezes over, locking its movement. She yells that beating the statue isn't the main goal. They need a new power source to open the ceiling, and she can think of only one. Sliding down the wall while firing, the girl says she gets it. As her shots land, Debo swings his axe at the statue's head and says she needs its mana stone. Kiri warns him not to break the stone, just hit the weak spots until he finds it. It works, and seconds later the glowing mana stone is exposed. Just when she starts pointing out the damaged area, she realizes her foot is stuck. The statue notices and moves to grab her. Kiri yells for Dibbo to watch out, but before the giant can catch him, a sacred shell protects him. He turns and sees Ralph, who calls him son and says it's been a while. Then he breaks the barrier and grabs the young man before the giant can. Dibbo calls him a traitor, and Ralph says that's no way to talk to your father. Someone yells at them to quit messing around as the water keeps rising. Elpham raises his bow and fires a flaming arrow at the statue. MC's shot hits so hard it shatters the ice and sends everyone flying. The girl says she knew he was still alive and is glad to see him coming. Dibbo yells not to break the Man of Stone. Using his monocle, he spots where the core is hidden inside the statue. He tells the other guy to hold tight, then uses his power. The young man feels his weapon move by itself and gets flung upward, screaming that he's about to crash as he flies right at the giant. Manor shouts that she loves the plan and jumps in to help. Gripping the weapon, the young man says he has no idea what's going on. The other two lose it and yell at him to just move already, calling him an idiot. At last, Dibbo realizes this is his moment to shine and swings his axe with everything he has. The blow explodes on contact, blasting open a hole and exposing the Man of Stone inside the giant, so he dives straight for it. The giant notices something moving inside its body and reacts in shock. Ralph jokes, asking if his son tastes good, then charges in. He slams a fist into it and orders the giant to spit his son out. The hit lands and breaks off another chunk of its body. Then he keeps punching, opening a second hole in its stomach. Once he does, Dibbo gets blasted out. With the Man of Stone in his hands, he declares the statue finished. The moment he lands, rocks start crashing down behind him. Without mana, the stone giant can't move anymore. Its body slowly falls apart until the whole thing collapses. But now the water is almost at the ceiling. He tells everyone to stay calm. They're almost out. Below them, Elpham is swimming with the Man of Stone in his hand. Less than 3 minutes are left, and he hopes he's not too late. Once the device gets enough power, it should open. Using his monocle, he figures he needs to find the fastest way back to them. Ralph starts to worry because they're running out of air, so they count down before holding their breath, and at 1, everyone goes under. Elpham knows that at this rate, he won't make it in time. It would take 5 minutes by the normal route, so there's only one option left. He decides to make his own way through, using the power of the ring to form a vortex. He only gets one shot at this. Moving fast, he tries to break through the walls into the right room. He uses Flame Orb to blast a path open. When he finally gets there, he throws the Man of Stone into the machine. It drops perfectly into place. The stone breaks apart, and power starts spreading through the whole area. The energy runs from one side to the other, linking up and flowing through the pipes into the puzzle. The gears start turning, and everyone underwater notices. A huge door opens beside them. They get out and finally breathe again. Once they leave, the young man says he really thought he was dead. He's sick of this place and totally worn out. In the next room, another statue shows up. Moner asks if this one will move too, and the other says he has no clue. Debo starts worrying about his master. Then Elpham appears below them, swimming hard toward the group. But he's already out of air, and the climb is still long. Water fills his lungs, and he starts blacking out. Moner jumps in to save him and gives him mouth to mouth. When he comes to, a woman tells him he's pushing himself too hard again. As he sits up, he asks where he is. His old teammates are smiling at him. Jaden tells him he can rest if he's tired. Alexis tells him not to force himself, and says he did well. Elpham realizes he's seeing a memory from the past. Back then, he had also smiled, said he was fine, and made that promise to them. Then back in reality, he wakes up coughing out water. After wiping his mouth, he asks what happened, and whether Minder saved him. Durbo says he got scared because Elpam took too long to wake up. Looking him over, he sees no injuries, and Ralph says that's thanks to his healing power. Then, turning to the girl, he asks if something's wrong. Embarrassed, she says it's nothing. Ralph says everything went as planned, except the last part. The young man complains they should have told him first, but Ralph says to trick the enemy, they had to trick their allies too. Elpam starts asking about the first attack, but the man quickly changes the subject. Then he asks why he was carrying Baiju, and the answer is that he had a promise to keep with Garfor. Right then, Fur suddenly runs off, leaving everyone confused. She reaches a room with an artifact, and shouts that she found it. It's the hero's item. Still, no one knows if it's the real one. Fur insists it has to be, since it matches the description exactly, and says it's the key to Phantom's vault. Phantom, the greatest thief in Maple World, hid all kinds of treasure in that vault, and this necklace was the key. She picks up the artifact and thanks everyone, but then stones start dropping all around them. The room is collapsing, so everyone runs. She gets scolded for grabbing the item without thinking, and all she does is thank them again. There's an exit ahead in the tower, but they don't know if it's open. To make it even worse, skeletons rush at them. Ralph says this one's his and charges in. He activates his artifact, setting off a huge burst of light that wipes the skeletons out. When they ask why he didn't use it before, he says it cost too much mana, and that each of them now owes him 500 mesos. Then another skeleton knight in armor charges at them on horseback. Everyone panics and begs him to use that move again, but he says it was a one-time use, and as he runs, they call him useless. Maynor steps on a weak spot, and the ground opens under everyone. With her last spell, Fur makes a plank so they can slide down safely. They splash into the water, but the knight chasing them can swim too. Elpam calls for Kiri, and she already knows what to do. She uses lunar division, freezing the water to stop the knight. The skeleton roars in anger. In front of it, Minder aims her weapon and tells it to stay. With one blast, the area is blown away, including the knight. Fur warns them they're about to slam into a wall. Using his bow, the young man shoots it apart. They still have to move fast, because the bridge is about to give out. They race up the stairs and find the portal. Fur tells them not to stop and to jump when she says so. Everyone leaps for the portal as the tower falls apart behind them. A spider says it can no longer feel Baiju's energy and calls this another failure. A man below it says he has no excuse. He will pay for this with his life. The spider says it can take his life whenever it wants, but first it wants to show him something. It says it's time to change players. The Lord says there's still hope. He tells the young master that he must still be alive, since the portal remains open. Since they weren't a full team yet, 6 more people can still enter, so he offers to lead a rescue squad. He gets angry and pounds the table. A young man talks about a group carrying several valuable items and protected by special guards. Just what you'd expect from the sons of Maple World's richest men. The girl asks if Kanye is scared. Everything might blow up in their faces. She says the whole thing feels shady, and suggests hiring Goldrich. Turo gets tense when she hears someone come in, but relaxes when the voice reaches her. The door opens, and the newcomer says they couldn't ignore this. That only makes the girl more sure she knows that voice. Fur asks Elpam why he won't give her the ring, and he says simple, he just doesn't want to. Now excited, the woman becomes sure she knows who he is. She runs over in tears of joy after recognizing him, but stops when someone suddenly yells at her to shut up. That person grabs the young man by the collar and demands the ring back, while an annoyed Elpam says he only took it like they agreed. The arguing keeps going, and the girl feels relieved. Soon, good news starts spreading through the papers. They report that Jack Rich is trapped in the portal, and people can't believe it, since his team was supposed to be one of the best. Everyone talks about the huge 150 million meso ransom, and plenty of people want in on the biggest story in town. Ralph says his urge to save people is on fire, now that the master is gone. The other guy says he's obviously after the money. The two walk down the street because their boss wants something from a shop. The man says he's got a plan. Stopping at a house, he says they'll understand once they go inside. When they open the door, they find a man sitting there. Debo asks if this is really the place because it looks filthy. One of the men inside calls for Gary, and tells him the customers are here, so he can quit sleeping. The moment he looks at Ralph, he recognizes him, which leaves his partner confused. He says he thought Ralph was dead. Pointing a knife at him, he says this is the first time they've met since Ralph stabbed him, while Ralph insists he didn't do that. Watching the threat, the young man starts wondering what happened between them. Ralph says he had his reasons, but that's not why he came. Then he pulls something from his pocket, showing the money Elpam gave him. He says he brought plenty. The man curses him out, then suddenly hugs him and says he missed him, making the young man realize what kind of weird people these are. Once the deal starts, the man says he has everything, except what he doesn't. Ralph asks for a strengthening scroll. The merchant pulls out several from a box and says he's got them. Debo says those are just normal scrolls, and the man asks if he's blind. They go back and forth for a while. These scrolls can boost other items by a set chance. Picking one up, he says this one has a 100% success rate, but they call it trash. Ralph says they're getting ripped off and tells him to take a closer look. What matters most is the success rate. They need a rare scroll with a low success chance, but a huge payoff. The merchant says he profits by selling things he doesn't even have, and Debo calls him a scammer. Now things are different. Top-tier scrolls count as military gear, so selling them is against the law. Outside, Ralph grumbles that the trip was a waste, especially since he really needed those scrolls. Still smiling, he admits he would have bought 50 if the guy actually had them. Then a hand lands on his shoulder. The merchant grins and says he wasn't done talking. The Archmage Freud Dragon Master, also called the Draconic Mage, went by many titles, but the most important one was Master of Time Magic, and he hasn't shown up in the last day. 800 years ago, when the Black Mage was about to be sealed, he cursed 6 heroes and froze them in time. Freud was the only one untouched, so he wandered the world searching for a way to save them. He never found an answer, then vanished without a trace. But that can't be the end. He must have left something behind. The only thing left of him was the hero's ring, and now Elpam has it. So why did Freud return? If anyone could answer that, it would be him. And if he really controlled time, how could someone from 800 years ago still act now? Carol says Freud chose him, but she has one question. She wants to know why he was fighting the followers. He says it's personal, then admits the truth. He wants to save them, no matter the cost. In the forest, someone breathes hard. It's Kiri, practicing her sword swings. She's training so hard she's drenched in sweat when Debo shows up and asks if she ever gets tired of doing this every day. Kiri says she was looking for him, and he explains he went to see the master about something. Then he starts talking, awkward and stumbling over his words. At last he asks her for a favor, which catches her attention. Red-faced, he asks if she'll go somewhere with him. She says yes, and the next day, he waits by a clock. He wonders if he got there too early. Then Kiri shows up in heels, apologizing for keeping him waiting. She explains that Menor made her late by dressing her up, even though she didn't want to. Embarrassed, Kiri asks why he's staring. Does it look weird on her? Nervously, he tells her the truth. She looks beautiful. After that, they head off together, not knowing the others are following them. Everyone wants to know why these two are meeting alone. Earlier, Kiri had told Menor that Debo asked her to help pick a birthday gift for his little sister. The red-haired adventurer immediately says that's obviously an excuse. Still, Kiri admits she's bad at choosing gifts, so she wanted Menor to come help. Back in the present, Debo shows her a brass knuckle and asks what she thinks. He says it looks good for self-defense. Kiri asks why he wouldn't just buy a sword then. They spend the day checking stall after stall for the right gift. Kiri smiles, saying, going out dressed like this wasn't as hard as she expected. Since she started night training as a kid, she's not used to leaving home without armor or weapons. Then Debo suggests they visit the explosive stall, and she's on board. Meanwhile, their 3 friends keep watching from hiding, and Menor gets annoyed by how clueless they are about romance. It's obvious they like each other, and she sighs that at this rate they'll both stay single forever. Then Debo's sister suddenly says that's exactly why everyone calls her brother an idiot. The bearded adventurer is shocked and asks how she knew they were there, and the girl reveals she was the one who asked for the present. Watching the pair, Jack wonders if he looked that good with someone from his own past. Menor shuts him down, saying she doesn't care about his love stories. Elpem cuts in and says they're wasting time, but someone fires back that he only says that because he doesn't care about romance. That surprises Menor when he says he actually does. He's even dated once or twice before, he just doesn't have time for it now. Curious, Menor asks what happened. Elpem says that's all in the past, and the person he loved isn't even alive anymore. Then he thinks about it more. He came back in time, so maybe she is still alive. By nightfall, Debo thanks Kiri for helping him. Kiri smiles and says she's glad she could help, and that Denev will probably love the gift. She says goodbye and starts to leave, but Debo asks her to wait. When she turns back, he loses his nerve, and just says he'll see her tomorrow. Beaming, she tells him to ask anytime he needs help again. When Debo gets home, he finds his sister and friends inside, and asks what they're doing there. Somewhere else, a cry for help rings out. Fast! A hooded boy blocks a monster, and warns it that he won't let it go any farther. But a man marked with wicked symbols and a snake on his back releases his power and pushes straight inside, heading for a stone that seems to be his real target. With a grin, he says he's finally found the sealing stone of the Kiri Freud, the one said to hold the power of time. But when he grabs it, he feels no magic at all. Enraged, he starts smashing the place apart and demands to know who dared to do this. He decides he has to find that person, no matter what. That's where this video ends. If you don't want to miss the next part, turn on the notification bell, and I'll see you next time here on this YouTube channel.